This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Rebel Force Radio presents
There is only one way. The way of the Mandalore.
The Mandalorian. After show. After show.
I have spoken.
Well, I saw Rob in the chat saying, Swank's mom is calling. No, not this time. No, thanks, Rob, because I remembered to put the phone on Do Not Disturb. Mom's not getting through this week. It's the last week. It's the season finale. I can't stop and talk to Mom. Mom can wait. This is big news. I did watch this episode, not with my mom, but with my wife and kids, and throughout the 34 minutes or whatever it was, we'll talk about it in the tail of the tape, I kept hearing, I don't trust him. Ooh, I don't trust her. Yeah, she's sus. What do you think? Yeah, she's sus. I don't trust her either. Well, who were the spies? We'll talk about it. Were we misled or was it a misunderstanding? I don't know. And by the way, hey, Bo-Katan. Yeah, don't hire her to be your babysitter. Did you notice how Grogu just disappeared between the end of the last episode and the start of this episode? She wasn't looking after him at all. He just shows up and saves man. I mean, it's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. It's a good thing that he showed up when he did, but so much for her looking out for the kid. And that ending, tying everything up in that little bow, all we needed was just a title card that says, and they lived happily ever after. All right, well, we're going to get through all of it. Your thoughts, your observations, your calls, what we got right, not just for this episode, but the whole season. We are celebrating all of season 3. And by we, I mean, of course, myself. My name's Jason, and with me, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Yeah, we're coming at you for a final after show for season 3 of The Mandalorian. Coming at you hotter than axe wolves behind the controls of an Imperial cruiser on fire. That's us, RFR. Yes. Oh, and one other thing. We know what happened to Mando's stupid spear, okay? My God, how many emails can you guys send? We had resolved that by the end of the show last week. Stop sending us emails on that. How could you guys forget? Well, let me see. It was in another series called Book of Boba Fett, which was 3 series ago. I mean, we've had Kenobi, we've had Andor, we've had Bad Batch, and all that stuff in between.
I want to ask,
thanks.
How could you remember?
Thanks to Swank for taking us down that path.
Oh,
I just want to thank you, Jason.
You got it. Anytime.
For making that whole dialogue even possible in the first place. Yeah.
No, my question to them is, how do you guys remember this stuff?
Yeah.
I used to lay all my Star Wars figures out on the couch, and yes. I would tell my grandma, the names of the characters. I'm like, that's Hammerhead, that's Ponda Ba, or that's Walrus Man, and that's Luke and his X-Wing. And I'm just like a 5-6-year-old kid, and she would say, I don't know how you remember that stuff, honey. How do you remember all those names? And now that's how I feel with half our listeners. I don't know how you remember that stuff.
I really want an updated version of that whole show and tell. Something we can maybe put on YouTube, Swank on the couch. This is Casca Reeves, and this is Bo-Katan. And this is a stormtrooper. He doesn't have a name, Granny. He's just one of the guys.
Hold on, is that Fruit Loops Han? That stormtrooper?
Well, they may have. I don't think so.
That's an oldie, man. Look at that. That's Power of the Force. Nerd? That's Orange Card, Power of the Force.
You want to be super nerd? The Han actually had, this arm was more bent to hold his helmet, and this one is not.
Yeah. But everything else is the same.
That's a real deal right there.
It's just the arm, I think, that they changed. But
so there you have it. Show and tell is over.
Yeah, we're not here to talk about action figures right now.
Let's talk about this episode. There's a lot to be said about this episode, my friend.
Very much so. We are talking about The Mandalorian, the season finale of season 3. That was episode 8, chapter 24, The Return. What are they trying to do with us with these titles? Do they know Are they punking us? Are they trolling us? We had the spies last week. Oh, everybody knows that that's a Jewish term for a scout party. Yeah, everybody knows that. The return, I kept waiting for, the blue guy. Anyway, directed by Rick Famuyiwa, written by Jon Favreau, a solo writing credit for Jon Favreau on this episode. Of course, those familiar themes, they were running rampant through this episode, just like they were in Chapter 23 by Ludwig Göransson, and that score by Joseph Shirley. Original air date, for those of you listening and watching this in the future, April 19th, 2023. And the runtime minus the end credits, 35 minutes, 33 seconds, or thereabout. So, like I was saying, Jim, watching this with the family, we're on high alert. We're seeing shadows everywhere. We're seeing traitors. We're seeing all this stuff. And the reality was, as far as I could tell, what was happening on my TV screen, and I watched it twice, there were no other spies. Elia Kane is the only spy that they were referring, or in that episode, they weren't even referring to her. And we did have a great call by a listener that tipped us off that, hey guys, this actually might mean something other than spycraft, espionage by spies. It could mean a scout party, and that's sort of an ancient term. Were you looking behind at the shadows?
I was expecting something to reveal, but I was ticking off all the boxes as potential candidates for spy were being eliminated along the way, either by blaster fire or by exposition. But it sure made for a fun week of speculation, and that's what we had. We had a real good time. Spy, no spy. That was the question about every character that was on screen. And as it turns out, I think the title last week was indeed referring to the scouting party led by Bo-Katan that went down to the planet. And because, they were spying, really. It was an Imperial occupied planet at that point. So it was not their planet anymore. They were the outsiders. So maybe that's why spy. I would have maybe preferred the scouts. The scouts, if that's what we're going for. But whatever. It's going us down a rabbit hole, and we had a good old time speculating about everyone from the armor to Axe Wolves. And they gave us teases along the way, too, with Axe, as he was rocketeering his way into the outer atmosphere of the planet, which is something I didn't know Mandalorians could do with that jetpack. It seemed like there were restrictions on the jetpack in place during this season. Remember when Crazy Ragnar got taken up into that nest and they had to get up to it, but they couldn't, their jetpacks were not capable of going that high, they say. But here we got Axe, and he's got the nitro in the backpack, and off he goes. And it was cool. What a great visual.
Oh, it was a great visual. It reminded me whenever you take off in an airplane and it's either snowing or raining, and as you're going up and you're finally getting out above the clouds, and it's just pouring down on you. But imagine that being you. You're not in the cabin of an airplane. That is just you and your Beskar armor. Woof.
Yeah.
It was intense.
It was like, somebody put some high octane into the Iron Man's repulsors.
Yeah, that's right. It was very Iron Man. I agree with that.
But Axe taking command of the cruiser is, as you say, in the swank living room. It was sus. It was sus. He just busted in there like gangbuster. Everyone out! I'm taking control of the cruiser. But everything was presented on the surface to us in this episode. In this season, everything was presented right on the surface. So the deeper we dug, the more we were really spinning our wheels. The entire story was being told just right in front of us. And Axe was serious he had good intentions when he took over that cruiser. When he took over the cruiser, I was like, oh, this is it for the Mandalorians. He's going to open fire on them down on the planet.
That's what I thought too. I thought that too.
But he's a good guy. He's a good guy. There
well, the other thing that was unclear, Axe. There he is, Axe Wolves.
Does he use
Wolves.
Axe body spray? That's the question.
Use it. What do you think they named it after? X.
Smell
Wolves.
like a
I'd like to.
wolf.
You know what? If that brand had any sense and they had a lot of money to pay for a really expensive license, they should make Axe Wolves scented Axe. I think they still
It's
make
not
that
out of the
stuff. Don't they
question.
make that stuff, that body spray?
Spray by yourself. You know, I know a lot of people at the convention center who could use a spritz of that stuff.
Well, yeah, that would be the perfect thing. You know, they could give out free samples, and you could pass them around and spray all the smelly people at the at the
Speaking of which,
but no,
look what Joe
everybody
Dallas
was
sent me.
Oh, what is that?
Joe
You've
Dallas.
got an official
Star Wars.
cap. Star Wars
it doesn't really work
Celebration
over the
Europe.
headphones.
Very nice. It looks like
I
one of
didn't
those
have to wait in
little
line
hats.
for
I wouldn't. That
Didn't have
wouldn't
to
fit
wait in
over
line?
my noggin.
Didn't have to go to an airport.
Mm.
Yeah,
And you still you watched more panels than you ever would have had you actually been there in
That's
person
true.
than you'd have ever been able
That's
to,
true.
and you got the hat.
I struggled last night because I still have a lot of coverage from Star Wars Celebration to look at. And I got home from a White Sox doubleheader last night, courtesy of our own Tyler Page, who I was his guest, and we had a blast. But I got home late, like around midnight, maybe a little bit before that. But I said, you know what? I'm going to stay up for the season finale to drop. And I started watching some Celebration coverage from their live stream.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name? Doug Chang. His panel is outstanding. It's on the last day. It's
Mhm.
really good. You got to check that out because he breaks down all this concept artwork from Kenobi and Mandalorian. It's really good. But I fell asleep during it, naturally.
Well, Doug's got
Didn't
one of
make
those
it.
voices, you know. He's very soft spoken, and he talks about all of the design work that goes into making Star Wars. And then you're like, not that you're not
Very
interested. He
soothing.
just, you know, he could read one of those audiobooks that are, you know, bedtime stories. It's supposed to put you to sleep.
It was a very soothing experience having Doug Chang pillow talk me to sleep. So, but yeah, there's so much great stuff, and I'm still pouring all over it. So thank you, Sheldon, for the hat.
There you go.
Okay.
There you
I don't
go.
wanna wear it.
How about this? R5D4 for the hero. Is he the MVP of this episode? I kind of think he is. R5D4. Thank the maker. Droids learned how to fly since the original trilogy.
That was a surprise, because I think the thing about R2D2 is it was always asked, well, why didn't he fly around in the original trilogy? And it's because I guess he was retrofitted and the jetpacks were removed. That's just kind of what they say. But R5 stepped up to the plate. I noticed that Din has softened his dislike of droids.
Oh yeah, calls him buddy.
He called him buddy, and then of course at the end, you know, with the return of IG-11, I mean, there was just, you know, he rode around in the Razor Crest with that destroyed that destroyed bounty hunter droid Zero. He had that with him for a while. Who knows what he was doing with that thing? And R5, though. R5, big moment. R5 versus the mouse droid police force. That was exciting. You know, those
love
mouse
that.
droids, they've always had, you know, those little things, those little,
The lights?
I don't know, attachments on the top. And, you know, they never really had served a purpose until now. And as it turns out, they're rollers. Got they're pulling you over, man.
This gave everybody in the house a chuckle. We enjoyed this. This was just a fun little moment.
Fun.
You know, and that's all it's supposed to be, is fun. But I would say that, and there's again a lot to discuss and a lot to digest, but visually, this was an very satisfying episode. Some of the visuals were some of the most Star Warsy shots, shots like, you just take this one. This could only be Star Wars. What else could it possibly be? And I was a little worried because there were moments in The Mandalorian, in the series, where things looked a little generic. They looked a little just sort of sci-fi of the week. Sometimes it was like, am I watching Star Trek the next generation? What am I watching? But in this case, I think this episode in particular, in the last episode, they really, really nailed it. The other thing that was so cool about the visuals, not only were there so many good classic Star Wars elements, but they also did a great job, I think, of incorporating the sort of the live action equivalent of some of this amazing stuff that we've seen over the years in animation. Big Mandalorian battles, Bo-Katan with the Darksaber flying on her jetpack with other Mandalorians. I just thought it was a really great marriage of classic Star Wars visuals and this new stuff that is familiar because we've seen it in animation, but it's just really mind-blowing when you see it in live action, especially when it's done really well. This is another shot. What else could this be, with the iconic cockpit, and it's so Star Wars.
Yeah, there were amazing aerial battles that were, cinema ready. It appeared on my screen.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was watching a TV show. It looked like the next Star Wars film. TIE interceptors and bombers and cruisers and Mandos flying all over the place. Talk about faster, more intense. We saw action sequences in this episode that immediately demand at least one rewatch. No, several rewatches, because things are happening so quickly at a pace which is just heart pounding at certain times, especially the aerial battles with the Mandalorians when the reinforcements arrived. Led by the armorer and Casca Reeves. It felt like I was flying along with them at times. It was so intense. So there's Bo with the Darksaber. I just love the intensity of just this screen grab alone is speaking volumes to me right now.
It's also a little like Peter Pan. Like it's Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, coming through the clouds of London. It was just, and what I don't mean that in a dismissive way. I just mean fairy tale fantasy. That's what I mean. That's escapism, pure escapism. I don't always need a world history lesson when I'm watching my sci-fi fantasy. And so that's what I liked about this was really the escapism was just great.
That was awesome. Now the R5 moment, to my eyes, that appeared to be all CGI. I might be wrong because there's so many talented droid builders out there. Surely there must have been a practical model of R5D4 available to the filmmakers here, but it did appear to be all CGI to me. Not that's a knock, but especially since I can't immediately say, "Oh, that's CGI,"
Yeah. Well, isn't that the goal? The goal is to not be able to notice the difference.
Right.
I always thought that the droids looked great, and CGI R2, I always thought he looked great. Now, the life force that Kenny Baker gave him with those little wobbles and things, that was something that I thought they missed from time to time. But as far as saying, oh, that doesn't look like a practical piece of mechanics on the set, I never really felt that way, to be honest with you, over the years with the droids.
And R5 versus the police droid, mouse droid force, it was fun. No threat. I thought they were going to present more of a threat and halt him from actually seeing through his mission to unlock those laser doors one at a time.
Yeah.
Well, didn't like the idea of doing that because then it compartmentalized his attacks.
Oh, for sure.
So he didn't have to take them all on at once. But so that's pretty clever, actually,
Yeah, and it also made it more Qui-Gon v. Maul-like because instead of Maul or Qui-Gon getting psyched up for the next lift of the shields, it was these guards, these commandos waiting for the shield to open and for them to have their moment with Mando.
Well, the whole purpose and practicality of these laser gates make much more sense in this context than it did in The Phantom Menace. when we just kind of stumbled across them at the end of the corridor. And it's like, wait, what the hell is that? Now, of course, books have already, always they've been there with an explanation for why those doors existed. It was to keep out harmful vapors from being unleashed from that room that had a pit just large enough for Darth Maul to fall into.
Right.
Conveniently, Darth Maul size.
Well, he did hit his head on the way down, so could have been a little more spacious, maybe.
Chipped a horn on the way down. What a bummer! What a bummer! But really very satisfying. I just like to say the fight sequences in this episode. I think every moment there was hand-to-hand dueling and martial arts on display. It was some of the best hand-to-hand stuff we've seen in the entire series thus far. The choreography of the fight sequences, and this single episode had enough fight sequences, I think, to rival the entire run of The Mandalorian at this point.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think pound for pound, this was definitely the most action-packed episode, considering its length. And it was, as I was watching it a couple of times, and there's a lot of topics to talk about. But for the most part, this was an episode that was eye candy. It was payoff. It was putting a bunch of really cool things up on the screen, and not for no reason. Obviously, it all had a very important story reason to be there, but it was a really kind of balls out episode where they left everything on the screen, I feel like.
I mean, the whole season was pointing in this direction, and so this is the grand finale that was very much apropos after watching this whole season, because the whole season has been focused on resolving loose ends from Mandalorian stories introduced going way back to Clone Wars and Rebels animation stuff.
Yeah.
So there were a few loose ends there that needed to be resolved. And now I think all of the potholes have been filled. We know exactly what the Mandalorian history has been leading up to this moment, including ownership of the Darksaber and that whole history.
The Darksaber, which is no longer. It's been destroyed.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
Well, I feel okay about it, honestly, because to me it represents that they have moved on behind that and beyond that. And I think, too, in that moment, what Gideon says to Bo-Katan after he breaks the Darksaber is that Mandalorians are weak once they lose their trinkets.
Yeah, that was a great line.
It was a good
line.
I
love that line.
So maybe in that moment, Bo realized that in some ways they do hide behind the gadgets.
Yeah.
And that's when Din comes in, saves her from Gideon, and she realizes, no, Mandalorians are tougher when together, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And so maybe they're realizing that, well, they are realizing that unity, togetherness, that's where their strength is. And they're hopefully going to put aside hundreds and hundreds of years of civil war between them all. And it looked like towards the end there, with the relighting of the forge and the baptisms and all that they are coexisting. So,
all right. Well, as far as you're talking like real big picture stuff, but as far as the destruction of the Darksaber itself, when things like this happen in shows, I'm thinking about a few times they've trashed the USS Enterprise. I'm thinking about the time they split Luke Skywalker's lightsaber in two in The Last Jedi. I mean, when there's destruction like that happens, I would be a complete basket case if for some reason the Millennium Falcon was ever destroyed permanently. I mean, the Razor Crest, it's right in front of us. I mean, do you have any feelings that might be on the same level as how you felt when the Razor Crest was destroyed?
No, I don't. I do not have an attachment to the Darksaber
No,
like some. And I'm not
you're
putting
like
anyone down.
Din, like Din Djarin himself.
Yeah, it doesn't really. Well, I'm not a Mando file. I love the show, and I love Din Djarin, and I love the various characters. But as far as being all in on all things Mandalorian and the culture, and really wanting to know everything, and it doesn't hold a ton of interest for me personally.
Right.
So I'm not really all that impacted. I did think it was interesting that his suit, his new Dark Trooper suit, gave him these incredible strength, strong hands.
Yes.
So obviously the gloves have something to do with that. So he was able. We saw a hint of it with his battle against Mando as he grabbed his fist. As Mando tried to punch him, and he squeezed the fist and just busts the saber. So
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, from my perspective, the destruction of the Darksaber is for the best. It really is. What it represented and what it brought was much more negative than positive to the Mandalorian people. Think about its history. It was forged by a Mando Jedi named Tar Vizsla. I mean, to a modern Mandalorian, having any sort of connection to the Jedi is, it's sacrilegious almost to them. It's disgusting. But there was a time going way back, like 1,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, where there was a Mando Jedi named Tar Vizsla. And the Mandos, well, the House of Vizsla, right? Specifically, Pre-Vizsla and Paz-Vizslas and Ragnar. Let's not forget Ragnar. They're ancestors. They stormed the Jedi Temple to retrieve the Darksaber. And I'm not 100% sure, and maybe somebody knows who's like a walking Jedi encyclopedia, but I think this is the event that really started the conflict between Mandalorians and Jedi. And like I said, that happened like 1,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. Now, Pre-Vizsla was the first in like the era of Star Wars we're familiar with to be seen wielding the Darksaber. And let's think about Pre. I mean, anything positive to say about this guy? He was a militant extremist, considered by the planet Mandalore and Satine to be a terrorist. Not good. And then Darth Maul had it. Sith Lord Darth Maul had it. And he lost it to Sabine. Sabine ended up with it. I guess it was Ezra who snagged it, right? Am I forgetting my Rebels history? Was it Ezra who snagged the saber, or was it Sabine? I just remember when Darth Maul's place on Malachor was getting destroyed. Somebody snagged it, right? You remember
I think it was Sabine, because she was doing all of that training with Kanan and Ezra to finally
was
take
like
him on.
That's one little detail that's kind of
it was
slipping
Sabine.
with me. Well, whatever. Well, Sabine had it, and then she handed it over to Bo. Okay, which may have cursed the people of Mandalore, because you're supposed to win it in battle to be able to successfully wield it. So if it has any sort of special quality, if it's not just like a golden cow, which I kind of think it is, they're worshiping a false god by worshiping this Darksaber, but that's a whole different look at it. But if it really did curse the people because that rule was broken, then that probably led to Mandalore falling to Moff Gideon and the Empire, and then it's wielded by Moff Gideon, another negative. And then Din, he doesn't want it, he doesn't care, and then he hands it over to Bo, once again, perhaps cursing the Mandalorians yet a second time. So before that curse was able to establish itself, Moff Gideon did everyone a favor by destroying that thing.
Yeah.
And but they're weak once they lose their trinkets. I love that, because the first time I interviewed Jeremy Bullock, I said to him, Jeremy, is it the man or is it the suit? And Jeremy seemed, oh, okay, let's get into that. And he said it was the suit. and now we see all these Mandalorians, and what do they have in common with each other? It's their suit, their trinkets, their whistling birds, their backpacks, all that stuff. So he says they're weak without their trinkets. She says they're stronger together. Bo is right because they win. She succeeded. So she doesn't need the Darksaber after all. At the end of the day, she doesn't need it. And that's proven.
And at the end of the episode, they show the mythosaur that shows, I think, symbolizes that there is one ultimate symbol of who the rightful heir to Mandalore is, the rightful heir to the throne. So I kind of, at least for me, that was one of my takeaways. And also they needed to prove once and for all that was not a figment in Bo-Katan's imagination. Grogu clearly sensed the creature down there. The creature opened its eye. So there's a lot of ways to take that one. I mean, one way is that it's awakening because the Mandalorian people have finally found their way home. That this is a big moment, obviously, for them. They found the promised land, you might say. And so that has awoken the mythosaur. Yeah. And his legend and all of that. But I also think that it was to symbolize that there was a true symbol of the rightful heir.
Well, there's another thing that might have triggered that shot of the Mandalore, or not, I mean, the mythosaur, Mandalore, the Mandalore mythosaur. The thing that might have really triggered that was the fact that Grogu he took the creed. That could be something big. I mean, the Force might be at work here too. Remember, Grogu was also there when the mythosaur revealed himself, albeit he was on shore. Yeah, he was on shore. So I mean, his presence could have something to do with it. Him taking the creed could have something to do with it. So our buddy Turtle Wars says Ezra snagged the Darksaber from Darth Maul's hangout on Mandalore.
But others in the chat are saying it's Sabine, so there seems to be
Turtle Wars. Well, no, Sir Jango Fett also says it. Sabersmith says it was Ezra. It was Ezra, but Sabine was the one who took it.
Yeah.
I don't know. No wonder I'm so confused on that.
Right. It's okay, everyone, that we don't have instant encyclopedic knowledge of these things. That's why Disney Plus exists, so we can go back and rewatch. Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So speaking of Turtle Wars, I see you, Turtle Wars, in the chat. So if you want to give us a call and talk about the thing you were talking to me off the air, I think that would be really cool. So Tyler, be on the lookout for Turtle Wars if he wants to call in. I don't think I've ever asked specifically a listener to call in, but we've had some off-air conversations, and I want to see if something's going down here tonight.
Yeah. Well, Turtle, it doesn't matter whether you're Turtle Wars or whoever you are. We'd love to hear from you. 708-866-1737. We'll get to the calls in just a little bit. That's 708-866-1737. You can talk to Tyler Page. He is our call screener and the official show observer here at Rebel Force Radio. So thank you, Tyler, for being here. And it looks like we've already got some people queued up, but there are some lines still available. So give us a call. 708-866-1737. Yes, the stunning visuals, the Mandos versus the Commandos. Versus Commandos. Really great stuff. But I'll tell you a visual that I didn't get that I was really hoping for, and that was once Mando shut down those cloning facilities. I don't know if it was just me, but I wanted to see all those Moff Gideons just slipping and sliding all over there like fish on a dock, slapping up.
Jason, jeez.
Spilling out of there.
That's gross. That's morbid. And yes, I wanted to see it too. And you know what triggers that is a shot from a panel from the Dark Empire comic series from the 90s when Luke destroyed a bunch of Palpatine clones in similar cylinder containers.
Yeah.
But their bodies just flopped out on the floor. It was really disturbing.
That's
so,
what
I would have liked to see that too. But
I mean, this is the stuff of nightmares right there. You know, God bless him.
Giancarlo
woken
up.
This is what happens when
getting woken up. Look at that look.
This is what Mrs. Esposito sees every morning.
Yeah, right. As Giancarlo wakes himself with the loudest farts of the day to get things going.
Oh man! But what a twist! At least it was for me. I thought they were going to be Snokes. I thought that Moff Gideon was working on this project to get in good with Palpatine to establish his position. Well, it turns out that there's no evidence to that. The evidence points to the fact that he was cloning himself. He was creating an army of Moff Gideons and hoping to infuse them with the Force, with Force power. Now, we know that technology and that concept is going to be borrowed from Palpatine, but where is Jimmy McCannon right now placing all of this, where you've got this rogue warlord that we thought was in league with the Dark Lord of the Sith and helping secure his eventual return, yet we find out he was using it all for his own means, and he wasn't sharing. There's no evidence that he was sharing it with anybody. In fact, the opposite is true. He was, he killed essentially Dr. Pershing's brain, so it couldn't be shared with anyone else.
Right. It was all about covering things up. He said, keeping things on the down low was his specialty, in the last episode. And he was clearly a narcissist. Last episode, when he revealed the Beskar armor, he's like, the best thing about it is I'm in it, baby. So he was really into himself.
Yeah.
And so he reveals his grand plan, after allowing Din to destroy his dozen clones of himself and then acting all sad about it. But he was tracking Din.
My babies.
So the only thing I could think of is that just Din got there before he did. That's the only reason Din was successful, because it seemed like Moff Gideon was waiting there for him. But that can't be the case, because Din, he was watching Din on that readout.
Yeah, Din was red and Grogu. Din was a red dot and Grogu was a little green dot. And I thought, wasn't that convenient? I got a shot of it because he's watching him like a video game, moving in and around. So it's almost like I thought that Gideon was really in control, that he was sort of playing cat and mouse, letting Din get to a certain point, and then he was going to put the kibosh on him. But yeah, I was definitely surprised by that. Here I got a shot of the map, and here you can see them tracking Grogu. I'm assuming Grogu's the smaller green one, and Mando is the big red one. But yeah,
why not dispatch your Praetorian guards directly to where these guys are being tracked? I mean, the Gamorrean guards, I think they just hang out on that platform out there. They're not allowed inside. They must smell bad or something. But in my canon, the only way I could really justify this is Moff Gideon says, very Darth Vader like, I will deal with them myself.
Yes.
And then he goes booking out of the room, and then we cut away and see Din messing around with the controls to increase the pressure or raise the temperature. Whatever he does, it makes the environment for these clones inhospitable, and they get rejected. The windows bust open and everything. So he turned it up to 11, didn't? So while he's doing this, Moff Gideon is in transit. That's the only way. Yeah, that's the only way.
All right.
But I mean, wouldn't he have said, hey, open up those laser gates and get those commandos out there to guard my clones, instead of just having them stand there,
right,
guarding that room? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, he's a narcissist, so maybe he just demanded that those commandos stay there to protect him.
There's
There's
no
Moff
there's
Gideon.
no question that sometimes on this show you really have to suspend the disbelief. There are some logic gaps, I call them. You know, I wouldn't call these big plot holes, but there are some convenience. There are some conveniences and some liberties that, in this case, it's Jon Favreau. He's got the solo writing credit, so we're going to lay it at his feet. I would call them shortcuts, Jim. I'd say that they're more than conveniences. These are shortcuts. And it gets a little frustrating sometimes, I got to say.
We had a cliffhanger last week. Din was taken into custody. Oh my God, he's going to get interrogated by Moff Gideon. Who knows what's going to happen? Well, all that really happened was they took away his backpack and dragged him through a hallway. And he was being dragged along, and we get a point of view out through his visor. Is that the first time that's ever happened? Have we must have, no, I think when IG-11 took off his helmet to spray him with the back spray in season 1, I think we had a little point of view moment. But we typically don't get,
Din, I'm trying to remember. I don't.
It was brief.
Yeah.
It was brief. But I saw that. I was like, have we ever seen Din's perspective through the visor before? I couldn't recall, but whatever. The cliffhanger from last week was resolved in the first few minutes in such an easy fashion. Grogu IG-12 saves Where did he come from? He was last seen with Bo-Katan at the end of
Where
last
did he come from? That's a $1 million question.
All we needed was just some simple 10-second shot of Grogu sensing something in the Force.
Yes.
That's all we needed. But again, shortcut was taken. So in my head canon, J-Mac canon, I believe he showed up conveniently because he felt the tremor in the Force that guided him to Din.
I totally agree. But you're so right. All it would have taken is a 3-second shot of him cocking his little head, and then everybody going this way, him going the other way, and maybe Bo-Katan looking and seeing that he was no longer there. Just something. But here's the other thing. You brought up the cliffhanger ending. There was a ton of intensity leading up to that. And you felt as the viewer that everything was happening simultaneously. It was almost like he had already launched those ships. You felt like all hope was lost for the fleet. You thought that it was over, that by the time Din took another breath, those ships would already be attacking the fleet, those ties that were out there.
Yeah.
The episode starts and it's like, we got all the time in the world. We're chatting. We're letting everybody know what's going down. You've got Axe has time to take that big climb up to, and warn everybody. I felt that the intensity in the very beginning, it got there again later, but I thought the intensity and the momentum that they were building up to at the end of the last episode was really lost at the beginning of this one. That was a bit of a problem for me.
There's a disconnect. Same director, Famuyiwa. So, all the connective tissue was there. It did just seem kind of, let's completely diffuse any tension we built up last week and get right to the action this week. And that's what happened. And that serves the story. And I'm down. I extended, long, drawn out things with him. A ball interrogator droid flies in again. And Moff Gideon's looking all smug while Din's sitting there in a chair. I mean, we've seen this before. We don't need to see it again. So, I mean, that would have been the next step, but unnecessary. This was all about action. This was all about the big setup of taking back the planet of Mandalore, satisfying the Moff Gideon story thread. And that's another shame. I really wish there was more Moff Gideon in season 3. He just kind of got shoved in there at the very end. And I would have definitely liked to have seen more of Moff, but I really do believe we haven't talked about his death yet, but that was Moff Gideon. That was not a clone, not with the way he was talking. And you never know. They could decide to bring him back via clones. We've already seen that happen with the Emperor in episode 9. Do we need to see it again? I believe Moff Gideon has served his purpose for the Mandalorian, and he needs to be moved aside so Grand Admiral Thrawn could come back in the Ahsoka series and take full control of the Imperial remnants without any kind of competition from this guy Moff, who's so full of himself. He's cloning himself. He's got armor. He would have been trouble for Moff.
He
And
definitely
it
would
would
have been
interesting to see
trouble.
that conflict, maybe.
Well,
But
I'm a
it's
little
not
disappointed that
Thrawn's
we're
story.
not seeing that, but it's not.
But it's not Thrawn's story. This is the Mandalorian story, and
right.
And Moff Gideon was specifically the antagonist of this story.
Yes,
he was our antagonist, and now he's dead.
So a couple of questions. I want to go back to some of the dialogue between Moff Gideon and the Mando. And Jim, I think this is obviously just speculation. I would not be a bit surprised if some of the monologuing that went on with Moff Gideon might have actually been in an earlier draft during the interrogation. That there might have been an interrogation scene where he delivered some of that exposition and those monologues, and they realized we got to get to the action. Right. He can say these things. He doesn't have to be in a conference room to say them. But he talks about his clones, and he says, my clones were finally going to be perfect. The best parts of me, but improved with the Force. Does that imply that there have been other batches? This might have been the best batch, or what he thought was going to be the best batch, but are there other batches? I'm not suggesting that who died was not Gideon, but that doesn't mean we've seen the last of Giancarlo Esposito in The Mandalorian. These clones could exist somewhere.
I know. But like I said, we've already seen that with The Rise of Skywalker. It wasn't exactly well received.
Well, it wasn't exactly well executed or well written or well explained. I think if you would have, if we would have been told a year before The Last Jedi came out, or The Rise of Skywalker came out, that Palpatine was going to be in it because of cloning, we probably would have pictured something more like what we saw in The Mandalorian with Gideon's clones and the tubes and in the bodies and all of that, and likely expected to see a more well-formed Palpatine. You know, that's another question I have, is Gideon seems to have pulled it off. Now, we don't know what their life would have been like after they hatched, but Gideon seems like he pulled it off, whereas the best they get later is Snoke, who looks like a complete mess, and then the version of Palpatine that we see at the end of Rise of Skywalker. It also looks like he's got like bones sticking out of his face, like Mr. Burns. He's got parts falling off. So is it that Gideon reached a certain level of success in this, or almost did, that Palpatine didn't?
Well, I think his prior attempts may have perished when the Imperial base on Navarro was destroyed in season 2.
Oh, that's a good thought. Yeah. Real good thought. Yes.
So that might have been his first batch. And also something that Moff Gideon had that Palpatine didn't was Dr. Pershing and his research. And it was kind of a shame that we didn't get any real resolution to the Dr. Pershing story in this episode. Like, is he dead? What does it mean when you get uploaded to a mind flayer? I mean, does that mean it harvests your intelligence and your thoughts and your memory? What does that exactly mean? These are still open-ended questions. And, exactly what was the motivation to put him in that mind flayer? What was the motivation to set him up and take him down? Well, it was to maintain the secrecy of his research. And like I said, Moff Gideon's a narcissist. He wants everything for himself. He's not sharing. I'm sure Elia Kane, her days are numbered. If Moff Gideon survives, she's not gonna, she's not gonna get any promotions or money or anything. She's gonna get whacked because she knows way too much. And
she's not gonna get whacked now with Gideon out.
Yeah.
Where
so, I mean,
does she go?
She could become maybe a war. No, she's part of this amnesty program with the New Republic.
Right. But she's a spy. Who's she a spy
is
for?
a spy.
She's a spy for Gideon. Is it possible that someone's going to pick up the pieces, or will maybe one of those other warlords collect what's left of Gideon's remnants?
She could
Maybe
connect
she
with
could.
Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Right.
And make herself attractive to him as far as the knowledge she contains. So, yeah, she might be back, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about her till now, quite honestly. Hardly at the forefront of my fandom priorities.
TK2755? She's always at the forefront.
Or G68,
Yeah.
amnesty officer G68.
Yeah.
She's known by many different things. But
well, I feel like she's still relevant because they put her in the reel at the beginning, the last time on The Mandalorian, or previously on The Mandalorian. They showed her talking to Moff Gideon. They did. And so that tells me that maybe that character is going to have, some longevity. I really like her. I mean, I hate her, but she's so good in the role that I think it's just interesting where she's going. Yeah, she's fantastic. I really like her.
But, I think maybe that was just purely for exposition purposes in that recap reel, because you have that back and forth with her and Gideon.
Mm-hmm.
He realizes the Mandalorians are out there and they're a threat still. And so that really gets the ball rolling for these final 2 episodes of the season. Yeah.
I got another nitpick. Can I throw this one out? I'll throw this one out. It bummed me out a little bit. It took me out of the story just for a second. When Bo-Katan comes in and kind of saves the day when Mando and Grogu get separated. Grogu shows up and the Praetorian guards take him into that other room.
Mm-hmm.
Bo is completely distracted with all these other things. She sees Din, she drops down and she goes, "I've got this. Go save your kid." How does she even know that he's in any danger? She was nowhere near to see the Praetorians push Grogu into that other room. That's another one of those convenient things that I go, wait
sure
a
it
minute.
is, but they have those helmets on. There's like infrared scopes in there and stuff. She could see,
It bothered me enough to write a note. I go, wait a minute, go save your kid. How do you know? She didn't even realize that Grogu wasn't with them at the end of last episode when he went off to save Daddy the first time. All right.
The fight sequences on that landing platform were outstanding.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
I don't care how they got started at that point. I mean, really, the fight sequences on the landing platform and the Mandalorians flying around up in the air, it's unlike anything we've ever seen in Star Wars live action, but it feels so Star Wars. Gideon versus Bo, Electro Staff versus Darksaber.
Oh, it was great.
And then the Praetorians are there. Everything's happening. This is really intense stuff, just high octane action and adventure. And sometimes that's all you need. You don't need all of this expansion of the mythology. Sometimes we like just a good old fashioned Star Wars brawl.
Yeah, there's got to be both. There's got to be both. But this was definitely
there's story here,
and I like
there
was definitely story. I just
sometimes you just got to blow up the Death Star. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I mean, it has to happen.
Some of the convenient shortcuts that they take bug me. I will say, speaking of intensity, my son was about to lose it at the end of this episode. To a 10-year-old.
There you go.
He thinks anything is possible, especially after seeing Paz bite it last episode. He really thought when those Praetorians and the way the writing was in this instance, when Din, gives that very anguished no as he's about to see the door come down, separating him from Baby Yoda, and he's got those 3 Praetorians, and all he's got is that ratty cage of IG-12 around him. It was real intense, and there was real danger. I was asked multiple times, "Dad, you watched this before. Please tell me." You would tell me, right? If something happens, you're not going to make me watch this if something happens. And of course, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that to him. But I just, I stared straight at the TV. Just watch, kid. But yeah, it was the most in danger I felt for Grogu since the start of the series. This was, I thought, the most harrowing.
That's so amazing that Parker does that to you. You don't tell me. You got to tell me. I mean, I that's amazing because through the eyes of a 10-year-old, this stuff is high drama. I mean, this is anything could happen. And to see poor baby Yoda, sweet baby Yoda there, and he's underneath those railings and stuff.
Yeah.
It was just you just for an instant, any viewer would consider this to be a high staked situation here.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets resolved plenty fast, but still you just have that moment of fear where your stomach drops and you go, oh God, he's underneath those metal railings. This is not good. This is poor sweet baby
this
Yoda.
Is it. This is
You don't
We're
ever
really gonna do it.
Don't want any harm to come to this little guy. We've been so bonded and connected to him since late 2019. God forbid, I freaked out when Bill Burr acted like he was going to drop him. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I didn't like that, much less.
Or when
Praetorian
Jason
guards
Sudeikis punched him
coming
in the
down on him.
bag.
I didn't like that, much less the Praetorian guards coming down on him. He's underneath the metal railings and hope is lost. But, Din was there. The dominoes fell in the right way, I think. And, I got to thinking, oh, well, Bo is going to be the one to kill Moff Gideon. And I started thinking, well, did she earn that? We just got, we've been 3 seasons with Din, and we've seen the conflict between him and Moff Gideon. And sure, the history's been filled in. Bo had to negotiate with Moff Gideon. He's and he stabbed her in the back. He betrayed her. So there's a history there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not as enforced as the history between Din and Moff Gideon. So as a viewer, I'm like, this won't be satisfying if Bo defeats Moff Gideon. But the way it all played out, they were able to team up then again one last time to face Moff as Axe Wolves. I'm coming in hot. I love that.
I in the house it was. They were looking at it and they go, oh, he's going to he's going to sacrifice himself. I go, no, he's got a jetpack on. He's out of there. He's out of there. And I was glad.
He's gone.
I was glad.
He's gone. But he had used the Spot Hero app to find a good place to park that cruiser. And it just so happened to be the Imperial base.
Everybody remember where we parked. Gideon, you mentioned about the history between Gideon and Bo. I like that he threw it in her face. What's it going to be this time, Bo? Surrender or fight? I love his delivery. He just
trash talk.
Oh, the trash talk. He's just such a great villain, man. And he doesn't overdo it. He's hammy, but it's so undercooked. It's undercooked ham, which I really like. You can tell he's relishing it. And I love when you see an actor really sinking their teeth into a role and enjoying every drip that they can get from it. And that's Giancarlo for me.
He's a Star Wars natural.
He is.
In the tradition of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee and Sir Alec Guinness, Mark Hamill. I mean, these guys just they that's a comfort zone. Ian McDiarmid. These guys, they are able to deliver.
Well, these theater guys, a lot of it, I got to say, has to be the theater. You take a guy like Harrison Ford, who had no real theater experience, no real professional theater experience, certainly not to the extent that these others that you mentioned. And so with his acting experience being up front, close to the camera, there's a certain realism that you want to elicit, which is great for the character of Han Solo. He's got to be real. He's got to feel real, like a guy you know. But for these larger-than-life characters, you really need somebody who wants to project to the last row in the house. It just seems like it's helpful. It can't be just a coincidence that the ones you rattle off are the ones that have those traditional classic acting chops.
You got it, man. You nailed it. You nailed it. I mean, even Mark Hamill, after
Oh, yeah.
Star Wars, he went on to have a very successful stage career, appearing in things like Amadeus and
He originated
Elephant
that
Man.
role. A lot of people think it was Tom Hulse from the movie, but it was
Yeah.
Mark Hamill that originated the role, and he really should have been in the film. He really should have, but he was Luke Skywalker to Hollywood.
Yeah, but the other guy was from Animal House. I mean,
Well, that's true. Yeah, but okay, I know you love Animal. I love Animal House, but I mean Star Wars, and Animal House is not exactly,
fine.
Fine.
But you're very right about this. The stage forming the performer and making them perfect for Star Wars. Hey, before we open the phone lines,
Yes.
I know you want to, but I really want to talk about how this particular episode set the foundation for future episodes of The Mandalorian.
Yeah,
A
let's
lot of
talk
people are
about
looking at
that.
this going, oh, this felt like a series finale. Oh, it's over. We're never going to, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the last episode. No. We'll have more Mandalorian probably in late 2024, early 2025. But it's a happy ending. Now Din can finally relax. We've known of his desire to slow things down for Grogu and himself ever since season 1, when he came up upon those villagers who were fishing for shrimp and being threatened by a rogue scout walker. They hired Din, and he met that widow, and between the two of them, it was revealed that, he wants something better for Grogu. He wants, him to grow up as a kid. He wants to slow down, and it's good. He needs to slow down. He's been on the run forever, bounty hunting and hanging with Jedi and Moff Gideon, all that stuff. So I felt like they did a great job of setting the foundation for the future, with the armorer telling Din he has to leave Mandalore, take his apprentice on his journeys, just like his teacher did for him. It got me wondering, who was Din's teacher? Wow, are we ever going to see his teacher? Din meets Carson Teva back at the base. He becomes this off-the-books independent contractor, ranger of the New
Mercenary.
Republic, essentially.
I say a mercenary.
Mercenary. Okay, yeah, mercenary who's bounty hunter sort of, but he has a focus. He wants to hunt down Imperial remnants in the outer core, and Tarson agrees. And this essentially makes Carson Teva to Din Djarin what Commissioner Gordon is to Batman. And he's going to be giving Din, or M is to 007, or Charlie is to the Angels. He's going to be giving Din his missions, and Din and Grogu will go off and they will hunt down Imperial remnants. Maybe some of those guys in the Shadow Council will become targets in Din Djarin's crosshair, or maybe Grand Admiral Thrawn in the Ahsoka series. I mean, it sets the stage for his involvement in all of that.
Yeah.
So I hardly think this is a final episode. As a matter of fact, it's a reset for the whole series that gives it so much flexibility now. And it really is going to set the stage for future adventures. I mean, indefinitely. So
much,
I think
Jim,
it's a
is
great
being
idea.
made of this Iris closeout of the episode.
It's cute.
It
I
is.
guess.
It's cute. Some are saying, well, George used transitions like page turns, corner flips, things like that, wipes, and those were things that we take for granted now, but up until Star Wars, they weren't really in vogue. They were seen as old fashioned. And but so this is a little bit different. This is what I was referring to as the little bow that was put at the end of this. And I think that this was a safe way of hedging their bets in the event that something happens that they cannot do future seasons of The Mandalorian.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, yes.
Not that the character is necessarily going anywhere, and I know that there's already work being done. In fact, sources are telling us that season 4 has already been written for The Mandalorian.
John Favreau is the source.
Oh, is that public? Is that public that it was already written? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't shot anything yet. They're not in front of cameras.
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I mean, what's holding these guys up? Skeleton Crew's been shot. They're putting the final touches on Ahsoka. Clearly, they have final touches to put on Skeleton Crew, but maybe they might be getting the whole machine back in action early 2024, late 2023.
But it's not unlike them. I mean, look what they ended up having to do with Rangers of the New Republic. They incorporated some of those storylines into this season. I just think that if they were 1,000% sure that we were going to see season 4 of The Mandalorian in 18 months, that we would not have seen this little visual at the end. Just my theory.
Right.
Just my theory. I think it was a little insurance policy.
And we didn't get any post-credit sequence either.
No, I scrubbed
that would
through.
Indicate. It wouldn't that would indicate what the next adventure is going to be. It did, give us a happily ever after sort of vibe. And that's fine. But I mean, let's face it, George Lucas had to go to greater extremes when he was writing Empire Strikes Back because Harrison Ford was under contract. So they froze his character in frickin' carbonite. To me, that's a more extreme measure than having the show Iris out with a happy ending to wrap up season 3. I really think that the future is bright for The Mandalorian. I know there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there and stuff, but this thing is the tentpole of not even just I think Star Wars on Disney Plus. I think a lot of people, when they think of Disney Plus, the first thing they think of is The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And so I still predict a bright future for this show. And I like how they cleaned the slate so it can go just about anywhere. And it might be a once bitten, twice shy sort of situation, considering the announcements they've made about future series and future films, and they fall apart. Maybe they're a little bit more on guard for all that. But I still see a bright future for this show. And,
I hope
and there's
so.
still there's still threads that are wide open. I mean, we didn't get any more Grogu flashbacks. I thought for sure we would find out what happened after Kelvin Beck flew him off of Coruscant on that ship. We didn't get anything. We even got more questions about Grogu presented in this episode. The scene when Grogu gets adopted by Din, the armor says his parents are far from here if they are even alive.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to say something like that tells me that it is possible that Grogu's parents could be revealed in season 4. Why even mention it? Why just say, well, his parents are long gone. He's been on his own for so long. They don't know. I mean, they don't know. We could get something that tells us where Grogu came from, who his parents are. All of these things are still in the mystery box. And maybe that box should be open somehow. And I think that it was a foreshadowing moment. Will we ever meet Grogu's parents?
Yeah, that struck me too. Like, why even reference them?
Why even reference?
Why put that thought in my head? Don't put that thought in my head, Armorer. Yeah. Oh, we should mention too that boy, there was a lot, and they crammed it all in the last 2 minutes of the episode. But we should mention that the new Marshal of Navarro is IG-11. The OG IG is back. IG-11, Taika Waititi, finally back in Star Wars.
Yeah. So the succession goes, Cara Dune. She was the last Ranger of the New Republic that was stationed on Navarro.
The Marshal.
And now we have, or Marshal. Marshal. So he's a Marshal. He's not a Ranger of the New Republic. He's got the stripe. He's got the Marshal stripes, which are consistent with all the Marshals. We saw that on Cobb Vanth's belt buckle. We saw that on Cara Dune's. We saw that on the badge that Carson Teva had. That similar 3 stripes, red stripes deal. So, yeah, he's back. And I'm relieved. I mean, it was fun to have Grogu riding in that thing. Yes, no, yes, no. I mean, how much mileage do you really want to get out of that thing before it gets completely beaten into the ground? I don't think it yes, Jason enjoyed it. He wants more. I just want the action figure at this point. Yes. Action figure. I want an action figure of that. I want Moff Gideon and Beskar armor. I want those Imperial Commandos. Are you taking down notes, Astro?
Yes.
You better be listening. Yes. And I want this new IG-11 too.
Yes.
All right, let's get to the some super chats. You guys have been very, very kind tonight. Here's Calvin. Calvin says, after season 3, episode 1, I wanted IG-11 to become the Marshal, but instead of being happy about it, I just wanted the baby to have his cool toy back. Love this episode. This is the way. So yeah, they bring it. They giveth, they taketh away. Seems to be how it goes with those things. But it would have been, I think, very difficult to tell the story they did in the last 2 episodes had Grogu not been as mobile and as powerful. I also liked that they weren't just, I don't want to say hiding behind his Force abilities, but it did give him a little more to contribute other than just his cute little paw, sticking out and doing something. So,
right.
And it also showed a little bit more what's going on behind the eyes with Grogu, the brains, the thinking, and, if he wasn't so limited physically, the things that he could actually do. So I liked that.
I didn't isolate the sound, and I should have. But when Grogu notices the IG head amongst the trophies at the New Republic base,
I
think he says his first word there. I think he says "pa" to Din. I think he calls him "pa," and then he babbles something and points to the thing. He goes "pa." That's not him, kid. That's not him, kid.
Pa. Well, that would work with the sort of Andy Griffith vibe with him at the end, sitting out on the front porch with little Ope playing with the frogs in the fishing hole.
Hey, Paul. Yeah. Very well could be.
Cinema, TV, and Streaming News says, just did a rewatch of all seasons leading to the finale, and say what you will about season 3, but to me, it's all pure Star Wars, and I've loved every minute of it. Anyway, keep up the great work, boyos. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm going to do it with Andor shortly, because the family hasn't watched Andor, and I after each episode of The Mandalorian, you get to see if you like this, why don't you watch Andor? And every time I see it, I go, you guys got to watch this. It's so good. So I'm going to make. So
Andor popped up every time for you, frustrating you as you're trying to see the credit list at the end.
Yes, every time.
And it's always Andor, right? It's not just me. Because I was getting mad at Disney Plus. I'm like, I've seen every episode of Andor multiple times. I wish I could turn that little gizmo off. And I wish I could turn off that crappy pre-roll they have with all the helmets. I'm so sick of that. I'm sick of hearing that sound. I'm just tired of it. It's not Star Wars.
I know they were going for like, this will be our new fanfare, but it's not the fanfare.
It stinks. Give us the Star Wars main theme with some TIE fighters flying by and a lightsaber too, for crying out loud. This red lights. And then fans go crazy going, oh, did you see the reflection on that helmet was red and not blue? It means, what does this mean? It doesn't mean crap, friends. Stop wasting your time. Replace it. It looks awful. And I'm burnt. It's been around for 4 years now. Let's move on. Okay.
It stinks. Get a new one.
Shaking my fists at the clouds, but whatever. It's the last episode of the season. I don't care.
Jimmy's Grandpa Simpson moment. No more Darksaber, or could Grogu create his own with the Kyber? So much for additional spies set up last week. Post-credit teaser scene, not in this episode. Thanks for all the live shows, guys. Loved every minute of them. Thank you, Sal B. Crumb. Could Grogu create his own with the Kyber? It wouldn't be a Darksaber, though, would it? It'd be a lightsaber. There's no Kyber in the Darksaber.
I don't think we really know what makes a Darksaber a Darksaber. I don't think that's ever, what's the difference between a Darksaber and a lightsaber? I mean, the mechanics of, is it even powered by a crystal? The mechanics of all of this seem kind
I believe it is powered by a crystal, but I don't think it's Kyber.
Well, I think we've put an end to the story of the Darksaber.
I agree.
I'm ready to move
Stick
on.
a fork
I don't want to see it recreated. No.
Fart Party. Oh, love you guys. Thanks for a great season of after shows. Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for being here every week and your generous super chats. We appreciate it. Contribute a great deal to the conversation. Here's Maddie. Maddie says, attention to detail is Grogu Grogu's tracking dot being green and smaller than Din's red one. Did they tag Grogu when they had him in captivity? It's a good question. I kind of, that was another one of those. I was like, is it because they know it's him and they've already had his DNA? And what about Mando? And I'm like, okay, stop thinking so hard about this. But
right. It's just a coincidence.
It's just a coincidence. They could have been two little red dots and you would have probably gotten the same
But
thing.
I mean, there's a certain element of visual storytelling that we might not have to look at it so literally and just realize that they're using the visual to clearly tell you a story. And if they make it more confusing than it needs to be, that'll take you out of it. So I prefer the straightforwardness. I think this whole season had a level of straightforwardness to it. Everything was on the surface. There were no twists, nothing like that. No mystery boxes, no gimmicks like that. It was just straightforward storytelling. And that's something I can appreciate. I did rewatch the entire season up to episode 7, including episode 7, 2 days ago.
Oh, you did a rewatch.
I did a full rewatch, pal, and I noted that this season flows really well. And some of our biggest complaints were coming in those middle episodes when we were concerned about, is this going anywhere? But it definitely does. And this, as I said last week, the season was saved by it all coming together in episode 7. And then episode 8 to give us a grand finale on this level. Yes, that is what saved this season, because as we were meandering through it and asking a lot of questions about who, why, what, and how, I think they did a successful job of wrapping it all up at the end so we can watch the season and get cohesion out of it. And perhaps go back and listen to some of our reviews and go, well, geez, our first blush reactions might have been a little intense, but I mean, that's the experience of watching a story unfold throughout a season.
That's right. I wouldn't have it any other way. I would rather have this much fun and be wrong.
Yes.
Than be encyclopedic and professorial down the line and be right about every little detail because I've had a chance to look everything up online first.
Yes. And that's
there are videos for that. If you're looking for the 55 things that you missed in this week's episode, there are videos for that. I'm not putting that down. That's just not me. And that's not this show. That's for sure. We are for discussion. All right, let's go to the phones. We've got Brent calling from Ohio. This is Brent from Ohio. Hello, Brent. Thanks for waiting.
Hey.
Hello.
Okay. Hi, Jason. Hey, Jimmy.
Hello.
Hey, Brent.
Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Smile. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Sounds like you got a cell phone that might be a little touchy, but go for it. Do your worst.
Okay. Well, I was wondering what you guys thought. Why did Gideon send those pirates to Navarro? What was his kind of game plan there? Is it like just simple revenge? He's irritated at him, or does he have like another base possibly there besides the one that got destroyed?
The pirates fell flat for me in season 3. Whatever the subplot was with the pirates, I still don't know what their presence was in this season. And I think it was probably, we've seen pirates in Star Wars before in animation and things like the Clone Wars. Honda Onaka, ring any bells? These pirates were just, I never thought them as a threat. I never understood what their presence was for. I thought they were goofs. And that Captain Shard or whatever his name was, he was just not even an enjoyable to visual presence, I mean, I didn't even want to look at my screen when he was on. I thought it was just one of the worst characters ever created under the Star Wars banner. So unfortunately, I don't have a reason for why these pirates were in league with Moff Gideon. Maybe it was you got me, pal. I can't even speculate.
What do you think, Brent? What's your theory?
Well, no, that's
Yeah, it's been on your mind.
well. I was just thinking, is it? Well, sometimes what Gideon, some of his actions are just flat out revenge.
Mhm.
You know, the way he was
Okay.
dealing with Pershing. You know, yeah, because he basically gave them the location of his cruiser, and that's what maybe that was part of his dealing with him this year.
You know, so I wonder if thanks a lot, Brent, and thanks for the call and the Patreon support. I wonder if the pirates aren't just a useful tool, perhaps misdirection. You know, blame things on the pirates. But that's as far as I can go as far as connecting the dots. You know, they were on the payroll. He uses them for low rent kind of jobs.
We've heard the one that escaped. His name is Vane,
Yeah.
right? We heard that he's going to be a player in the Skeleton Crew show. Like he might be one of their main antagonists.
Yeah, he's in
or something.
that trailer that they played at Celebration. You can see him plain as day.
So maybe more is to be revealed about these pirates. But I hope if they show up again in any way, shape, or form that they're used much more effectively than they were in that was a disappointment for me this season, were the goofy pirates. Arg. Avast ye, matey.
They even say Avast in the
Yeah, I know.
one point. Here's another Patreon member, Leighton, calling from Atlanta. Hello, Leighton. Welcome to Rebel Force Radio.
Hey, Chut.
Chut, my man.
Shut.
So you able to hear me okay?
Absolutely. We'll let you know if we can't. We'll say,
Perfect.
what?
Great.
Can't
Well,
hear you, Leighton. No.
I'm rocking the Mandalorian headphones that y'all sent me, so they're
Oh,
loving
yeah.
the-
Our winner.
Yeah, mine
Yeah,
too.
Max got him on here, too. Yeah. How are they treating you?
Yeah, they're great.
Awesome.
Use them for calls, use them for gaming, all kinds of stuff.
Sweet.
Well, I
That's
will just a couple of things. I'll try to keep this short. You both have actually touched on a lot of what I was talking to Tyler about, so I had to kind of think on my feet a little bit here. But I did want to say with the last episode when Gideon was saying that the only thing missing from his kind of witch's brew of cloning there was cloning and the force powers in the suit with him. And I thought that was great how it took on a whole new meaning in this episode.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
in the suit. And he's got a bunch of clones that he
Yes.
could put in the suits.
The best thing about it is what's in
I
it.
thought that was
Me,
pretty-
and I got a whole bunch of me's that are going to be wearing these suits. That's funny. I didn't put that together until just now. That's a funny observation. Yeah. Well, what
Yeah,
you said that
Yeah.
we'd already talked about all these other things. We're not the final word. So what else is on your mind that you don't want to talk about because we covered so brilliantly?
Oh well, I'll still talk about it. It's in that the final scene, which not final scene. So the scene with Grogu and Mando, and they were in the waters, the cave under
The baptism
mines
scene.
there.
Yeah.
Yes. I loved how Grogu, like when Din brought Grogu down, plopped him down, and it's like I want him to be my apprentice, and Armor is giving him all the reasons he can't be. Grogu seems just as invested in that process as Din does. He's very disappointed looking when she turns him down, and then when Din says, "Well, I'm just going to adopt him," he's like, "Whoa." He's super surprised and seems very emotional about it. I thought that was a great touch.
I agree. I loved watching his expressions and the way he reacts to the dialogue and stuff. And he seems one thing, and this could be the tech that they're using for Grogu, or it could just be them illustrating and showing us that he's a little bit older, is he does seem more reactive to what's going on, the dialogue around him. So he seems more tuned in to the action and what's happening.
Agreed.
Definitely.
I also like how this.
I'll put this last
Oh,
one
go
out
ahead,
there, and
caller. Stupid delay.
Oh,
no,
sorry.
not you,
I'll
callers.
put this out there, and then I'll just let you guys take it off the air.
Sure.
His
Or
name's
I'll take the
Leighton, not
intro here,
Delay.
I was talking to you.
I know.
Oh,
it is.
no.
Everybody's name is Delay.
So go ahead, Leighton.
Just with the the Darksaber gun. What your thoughts are on the significance that the Mythosaur will have going forward now that the Darksaber is off the table? So, but anyway, love the show, guys. Like I said, I'll take it off the air and keep up the great work.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much for the support on Patreon and for calling in. What I think the significance of the Mythosaur is, it could be two things. I'll limit it to one because you asked in relation to the Darksaber. What I think it is that, and Matt kind of alluded to it earlier, that the Darksaber is a bit of a false idol that they were somewhat worshiping. They put a lot of faith in that trinket. Whereas the Mythosaur represents the foundation of the Mandalorian culture, a living, breathing thing. Now, they think that it's myth. We know now that it exists. So to me, it's about the Mandalorians centering themselves back on the foundation of the beginning of their people, and the Darksaber being crushed and seen as the just object that it is.
I think the Mythosaur should be left alone in the living waters, and I don't think that the storytellers should approach it as something that could be tamed, even though Queel did say in the first episode that your ancestors rode the great Mythosaur. I think it's just, it's in the name of the actual beast, the Mythosaur. I think it should remain a mystery to the Mandalorians. Is it a vision? Is it a real thing? We as audience members seem to understand it actually is a real thing because we saw it without Bo-Katan seeing it. As a visual story, that could be either way. I mean, we could be seeing what Bo is seeing. We could be seeing from her perspective.
Right.
But then at the end of this episode, when they show the Mythosaur underwater, and we know it's just us as the audience seeing this. We know that those on shore aren't experiencing this. So what's the purpose of even putting it there? Well, it's to show us that it does really exist. And I kind of like that, having that knowledge as an audience member, while the characters on screen are still, they're kind of fuzzy about it. They don't know if it's real. Is it a myth? They don't know. It's just that presence underneath the waters is something that kind of keeps them on their toes a little bit. And I like that. I don't like exploring it anymore. If they were going to have someone actually ride the Mythosaur, then maybe that would be better off saved for the Filoni film or way down the road. Let it sit there for a while. Let us wonder about it.
Yeah.
Let the characters wonder about it for a while. I like that. I like that idea of having it present. We know as an audience that it's real, but the characters it's elusive to the characters.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want the first episode of season 4 to be Din, seeing the Star Cruiser heading towards Mandalore. He gets out, he goes up to the armor and says, Grogu told me that there's a Mythosaur in the living waters. He sensed it. Yeah. I don't need that immediate payoff. And that happened a few times in this series where, if I can fault this season with anything, and Jim, I know you said that you just watched the whole thing and looking at them all at once, binging them, you had a different impression. My impression, having not done that, is that the pacing of this season was just all over the place. All over the place. Slow to a screeching halt. Then it was like, oh no, let's cram everything into the last 5 minutes. And then another, drawn out thing. And then you had a really nice, well-paced episode. So to me, it just felt, as an audience member, taking it week by week, that it was all over the place.
The flaws are there, and I hope that there's greater care taking for season 4, and I think there will be. I just think that maybe some of the creatives bit off more than they could chew. Maybe there was some studio interference. Maybe, who knows? There's so many moving parts here, but I think all in all, if you can just look at this season and with the knowledge that this season is focused on filling in those Mandalorian history plot holes that have been present in front of us as fans for like the last 15 years. It's really nice to sit on the other side now and go, oh, okay, I understand it. I understand how Moff Gideon obtained the Darksaber. I get it. I understand how their civilization fell because of their infighting, because they were worshiping false gods, because they were, they were banging heads over idealism and faith and all of these things that we see in the real world all the time.
Right.
And we see where it got them. And the cautionary tale that this season is all about. That's not absolving the season of its flaws, but I think the whole season really does unfold nicely if you watch it all at once with, the mindset of this is going to resolve the story of the Mandalorians.
Right.
And take us away from, it's big picture stuff, a lot of it, and I'd have to say, I don't place it up there with seasons 1 or 2, but I sure the heck no, I didn't waste my time with season 3.
Yeah.
It certainly wasn't a time waste for me. And I can say that, a lot of TV series I've watched and adored, there's some seasons in there that are just a waste of time. I don't think this was a waste of time. No way.
Let's see what Dylan from DC thinks. Hey, Dylan, you're on with Rebel Force Radio.
Hey guys, good evening.
Hey, how are you?
So, doing good. I just wanted to talk about, you guys have touched on it a little bit, how a lot of the conflicts and loose threads in this season's episode were all tied up pretty cleanly and not in a satisfying way. But who really suffers from this is Baby Yoda, because now we know he was just an experiment for Gideon. Gideon was keeping him to himself and just wanted his own clones. So Baby Yoda has no connection to Snoke or a Palpatine clone in the future.
Thank God.
Well, there's ways. There are ways that could not be the case, and I'll throw one out there. What if Elia Kane has been working for Palpatine or Thrawn or Palpatine through Thrawn or whatever it ends up being? What if she's been working and feeding information back to him this whole time? I mean, that's one possibility.
A good idea. That could possibly happen.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting it. I wouldn't put any money on it. But if you want to live in a world where some of these ideas are still a possibility, I think it's a possibility. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
when the disappointment
could be told like that.
Yeah, there is a certain level of disappointment.
The story they told on screen.
Yeah, yes, exactly. You do, but there is a level of disappointment, I think, that settles in when you realize that the story maybe wasn't as large in scope and scale as you had hoped. Now, it's still a pretty big story, but when you start talking about it tying into Palpatine, we've been there with you for the last 3 seasons, or at least since the end of season 1, when this was sort of revealed that these elements were in the show. So I relate to that a little bit. I'm not totally bummed, but I can understand how you might be, and appreciate the call. Thanks, Dylan.
That's interesting that he takes that approach, because I know a lot of people were complaining when the Mandalorian was showing, when we first were seeing things like cloning and Baby Yoda's blood. What's that for? And a lot of people were speculating that was all arrows were pointing at the resurrection of Palpatine. And I know a lot of fans were complaining, no, I don't want this show to tie into the sequels. I hate the sequels, and here we hear, one of our first callers tonight is saying, hey man, I was really invested in all of that, paying off with some information about Snoke, who's still stuck in that stupid mystery box for the most part, or the return of Palpatine himself. There's still a lot of questions about how all that went down. They've only sort of told us what happened by painting with extremely broad strokes. And
there's a lot they can fill in. And for those that are disappointed that this isn't leading into the sequel trilogy, or for those that are happy that it isn't, it is. We saw Praetorian Guards. It's definitely tying into the sequel trilogy, and we're definitely going to be seeing. I would venture to say the beginnings of the First Order. We've got Hux in here. It's Papa Hux. So it's definitely going to happen. It just may not happen at the speed that you want, and it may not cover all the territory. By the way, for all the conspiracy theorists that put on social media the Praetorian Guards brutally killing Paz Vizsla and saying, "No, you were supposed to destroy the sequels, not join them." I could put the same. You didn't see that? Yeah, that was a fun meme. Yeah, they were so disappointed that to them it was Rian Johnson coming from the grave and killing the Filoni verse and the Favreau verse as they stabbed Paz Vizsla. But I'm showing up here on the screen. You got Mando that walked in and shot them all in the back as they were attacking Grogu. So the reverse could also be true. That the Filoni verse / Favreau verse killed the Praetorian Guards. I know somebody that's going to have an opinion on this subject, and that's our buddy FJ DeSanto, who has been sitting here on mute for the last few minutes. So, FJ, if you can hear us.
Yeah. This is a shorter wait than last week, so I don't really give a shit. Like, I'm okay with it. I'm okay.
FJ.
Thank you for not making me wait this long.
FJ, get right in that phone, okay? So we can hear you nice and clearly. You sounded a little muffled to my ears.
I got the AirPods on. Is it too far?
I think it might be better if you just talk to us like a normal phone call with the
FJ. People complained they couldn't hear you last time. They're like, "Oh, FJ's on. I love when FJ." They're like,
"You're talking
FJ's
into a potato or something."
How's it?
That's better. They say FJ's on. I love when FJ's on, but I couldn't hear him. They thought it was me not turning you up loud enough.
I'm here.
All right, you're here. Okay.
It was AI me. Last week was AI me.
Yeah. All right. So what did you think? The big finale. Some people are saying that the payoffs were a little too simple, a little too on the nose, a little too surface, and that our speculation was a little bit more fun than what we actually saw. But what do you say?
Okay. I don't think anybody's wrong. Let me be clear about this, because I've been busting balls on the Facebook group.
I've been loving watching
and
that.
Luckily, the majority of people have a good sense of humor and understand where I'm coming from. I'm never going to sit here and say somebody's right or wrong about their opinions of the show. I think the big problem is we've gone through, especially the second season, delivered such surprises and emotion that you almost can't follow up with it. You see what I'm saying? Like, the fuck, they had Luke Skywalker last year, right? So everybody has this expectation of, Grogu's going to ride the mythosaur, and Palpatine is going to be resurrected, and blah, blah, blah. And in the end, what did this episode in particular, these last two episodes, it sort of get it back to basics, which is, hey, we only really give a shit about Din Djarin and Grogu, right? Like, Bo-Katan's cool. It's a cool carryover from the animated stuff and all that shit. And, and you have Gideon, sort of building a base inside of Mandalore, which I actually thought was really cool. And I thought the action in this episode was awesome. I was absolutely convinced, by the way, when I watched it this morning, that Din Djarin was going to get killed. For some reason, I just thought he's going through every boss level humanly possible, like in this base. He's fighting these guys, he's fighting the Praetorian Guard, he's fighting all those, and then like Gideon's going to fucking kill him off, right? And we're going to have a completely different show with them. guess what? The Mandalorian's really about somebody else, a different Mandalorian. It's Grogu or whatever. So I think the problem is there's a level of expectation. It's like the spy thing. You guys are posting all this shit about the spy thing. There's no fucking spy, right? Like there's whatever.
Well, that's what the damned episode was called, man.
Yeah, we didn't just pull that out of our asses. I mean,
take it too.
The damn title of the thing was spies.
Literally. And the problem is it creates, and I'm not saying they're blameless. Like it creates an expectation. The big thing for me was this season, and I'm just being honest, structurally is a fucking mess. It's an absolute mess. It's all over the place. It jumps from place to place to place to place to place. That said, everything they do, I like. Right? Like I like the Bo-Katan reclaiming her thing. I love the pirates. I love what's going on in Navarro. I like that it finally brought it back to Din Djarin and Grogu, and they're badasses, and Grogu's a little more in on the action. He saves them at the end. That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of these people who hates the Lizzo Jack Black stuff. Like it's like these are fun little side missions, but there's no cohesion in terms of the narrative. So for example, it's like you have that whole episode with Pershing and Kane, right? Which I love that episode. I think that episode's a lot of fun. But what did that lead to? It was just a way to get rid of the guy? Like, did we need that? Like, I feel like in 8 episodes, this is maybe like 4 or 5 episodes worth of material if you streamline it. And Kyle says it best. Kyle says, I hate to give Kyle credit. I love to
yeah, we all do. Yeah, we don't.
Kyle said it best where he's like, they all feel like first draft scripts. Like, they're not polishing them. They're not honing them. They're not focusing. All that stuff. But I like what's there. And as everybody knows, we've been doing this long enough, is when it comes to Star Wars, if you give me stuff that I can enjoy, I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to stand and rip it apart, all this shit. I will tell you my one theory. This is not based on anything, right? And eventually we'll have a call about the Prophet and Loser shit, because I think I blew this entire season. But
I got it right here. I got it.
No,
Sweet keeps
I got it right here.
Yeah, I got nothing right. All right, we can go over it. But the thing is, I actually think, and this is going to trigger some people, but I actually think, and I texted you guys this earlier today, is I think the Gina Carano thing fucked up this entire season. I think, like, now they're shoehorning all the Rangers of the New Republic shit into the season. And that's where I think, like, the Pershing episode, all the stuff on Coruscant, I think that was, and then especially Din Djarin at the end, going to the New Republic camp and being like, I want to freelance for you guys and all that stuff. I think that sets up the next season. That's my Prophet and Loser. It's like all the shit like that, the origins of the First Order. Because, again, I was sort of listening to your last caller and all that stuff. It's like, you got the fucking Praetorian Guards in this. Like, you have Hux, you have all the seeds of the First Order. But you got to remember, that sequel trilogy is not for, like, what, another 30 years?
Yeah, 25 years or so. Yeah.
So you can't just automatically have it be like, hey, we're resurrecting Palpatine. It's like fucking 30 years, dude. Like, relax.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I
agree.
Like,
and Thrawn has to bring the Empire back.
That's a good reminder.
Thrawn has to bring the Empire back. That's essential. So that needs to happen before the First Order is even a thought.
Yet. Kylo Ren's not even born. Kylo Ren's not even born yet. It's like, calm down. Like, these are the seeds of all this stuff. Like, what I'd like to see, and again, not based on anything, but my own personal thing is all that stuff we saw in Rise of Skywalker on the Sixth Planet. What's that called? Where the whole
on Exegol. Exegol.
Yeah, Exegol. I love Exegol. Like I'd love to see shit happen there. Like, hey, we're going to start all that stuff. Like the seeds of that. Like, and maybe Thrawn is that. But I think also, you forget the last episode starts to put the seeds for Ahsoka into place. We don't know what Ahsoka's going to do in terms of building this larger universe out and all that stuff. And especially now that we know it's all going to build to a movie, and we know, like, some of these people on Facebook, they will strangle them. But they're like, the show should stop now. It's like, no, Dick. It's like, he's already written a season 4, right? Like, the season 4 is already written. So they're definitely now building towards something. But again, my big critique of it is structurally and narratively, it's all over the place. It only sort of comes together at the end. Like you could have done what you do in like 8 episodes, 4 or 5 of these things, and done more, right? But I also think, by the way, we know the pirates are going to be in Skeleton Crew, right?
That's right.
So how much of this season is going to be justified, or, how much of this season laid down the seeds for Ahsoka with the Thrawn stuff, Skeleton Key with the pirates, Skeleton Crew with the pirate stuff, and then the one thing I do like is that this finale ends on the two of them in their little farmhouse, just sort of clowning around. Like, we got it back to the basic core of the show. We want the two of them.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
It is about the two of them.
Whatever the fuck, right?
Yes.
Right. So it weirdly sort of pays off the Filoni animated stuff with Bo-Katan and the Mandalorians, but then sort of circles back to what is this show really about? It's these two guys, and we sort of went on this side quest. I think, again, talking about the structural shit is, I think the biggest mistake they made was those 2 episodes in Boba Fett with Luke and all that shit. Like, why couldn't you just made that part of this season? Like, I think people would have been more engaged, and you would have had more real estate for Boba Fett, and develop those characters, because they were horribly underdeveloped, right? So if you started, this season on that cool space station, where he fights Paz Vizsla with the Darksaber and all that shit, and it's like, oh, I took my helmet off, and she's like, oh, you're screwed, and that sets up the season. It's just this weird thing where it's just really like Favreau sort of just goes and writes a bunch of shit, and it's all cool, and he just sort of goes, well, this one's going to be here, this one's going to be there, and all this, and it's just one giant quote-unquote book. Sorry, I rambled on.
Yeah, no, but I do want to get to your profits or losers. I have 3. You only nailed, or I shouldn't say nailed, you only threw down with 3 big profit or loser prognostications. And we're going to decide whether or not it's profit or loser. And by the time you listen to the finished, no, I won't say that, because I don't have the profit or loser sounds right now. I was going to say, by the time you listen to the finished podcast, no, this is catch and release stuff here, folks. All right, number 1, the fate of the Darksaber is decided. Well,
yes,
I don't think there's any debate about
it's
that.
Sort of lame how it happened. It's sort of lame how he just sort of gave it to her and shit. But like, and again, this is like the perfect Kyle example about the first act. Like, when she rescues him from that spider droid thing, which was really cool, in whatever episode that was, 2nd or 3rd episode, that's the moment he should have been like, the Darksaber's yours. And then
absolutely
she showed up wherever the fuck she needs to show up.
That's what That's what I mean about the. That's what I mean about the pacing. Is, you have this big dramatic moment that would be perfect for him to hand over the saber, or for her to realize, or them to both realize that she's now the rightful owner of it. And then they wait a whole episode, and oh, hey, by the way, remember that thing that happened a few days ago? Like, come on, that was lame.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally. That's my whole point about.
Now here's one.
But again, the intentions are good.
Yes, I agree with that. All right. This is up to a certain point of view, but it's a technicality. Grogu and Mando will form their own house.
Oh. Well, they got their own house.
So this is like,
does that count?
This is like when you talk to the medium and they're a complete charlatan, but they don't realize that they got it back-ass right. So here's FJ. He's like getting visions of a house and a Mando and a Grogu, and he's like, they'll form their own house.
Well, I mean, if you break it down, perhaps they did.
I didn't mean it
he took
literally.
the surname. Grogu took the surname. They have their own pad now. I mean, what else do you need? There's more than one Din, so House Din.
But I'll
rock
be honest.
on.
I want to be honest. What I meant with that, like, it's exactly what you said. It's sort of ass backwards into being correct. What I thought was, I thought this season was going to be the Mandalorian Civil War, where everybody was, it's like all the Mandalorians were fucking thrown down with each other, and then at a certain point, he was going to be like to the armorer, like, go fuck yourself. and then to Bo-Katan, go fuck yourself, and be like, who wants to come with me? And they would start their own thing. That's when I meant a house. However, they live in a house.
All right, so I'm being encouraged by the chat to, in lieu of our official Profit or Loser sounds, we're going to do this. Grogu and Mando form own house.
No.
So there you go. No, you don't get credit for that one.
Loser.
No, I don't take credit. I'll take the L. I'll take the L.
The last one. I wrote it down specifically. FJ says that the search for Grogu will heat up / intensify.
I was wrong.
No.
Yeah,
You're wrong.
no. Loser. He was not really much of a.
I told you guys. I
not really
fucked
much.
the season up. You know, I went by the trailer where you see Pershing talking about cloning and shit, and I thought, oh, they're going to be going up. By the way, I also feel like this is another thing I was talking to you guys about, or maybe was I feel like Giancarlo Esposito wasn't like available for more than like a week.
Oh,
you know, like towards the end of the production, because like I feel like if they had more of him, you would have actually seen the breakout and all that shit. Because remember, you have like the what's his face, the X-wing pilot be like, it's Beskar, and they freed him, and it's like, okay, it ends up being he's got his own Beskar troopers and shit, but which are cool, by the way. The design's cool and all that stuff. And that's another thing I like is there is new designs, fun. You know, hey, we're gonna have tons of action figures of IG-11 with the fucking droid in it, then IG, the protector of Navarro. Like I like how in the end they sort of snuck in like how many action figures can we make of this shit. And
I know we were counting them off, you know, Moff Gideon in Beskar armor, all that stuff.
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you so much for calling in. It's always fun to talk to you,
FJ.
and the listeners love it. We love it. But unfortunately, was he a prophet?
No.
Was he a loser?
No,
Yes.
definitely a loser. Yes.
You
All right,
know,
buddy.
FJ, having your presence.
Thanks, guys.
FJ, having your presence in the Facebook group is, for us, it's kind of like the deal Mando worked out with Carson Teva, where you're just kind of an independent contractor busting skulls
He's our
amongst the
mercenary.
Imperial remnants. That's your role on the Facebook group. Yes.
I love it. He's
I
keeping
just
order.
want everybody to know that it's all meant in a good sense of humor. There's no malice. It's all good fun, and I'm just busting chops. So I hope everybody
Some
knows
tells
that.
me there's a little bit of malice.
Thanks,
but
guys.
I don't know. It's cool
Thanks,
to
buddy. Talk
Love
to you soon.
FJ.
All right, let's grab some more of these super chats. People are, as always, very generous. Here's Turtle War says, I'm thankful for more Star Wars and RFR. Lots of fun this season. I am going to match. Whoa, listen to this. I am going to match all super chats tonight, dollar for dollar, up to $1,000, and donate the money to Rancho Obi-Wan. So benefit night for RFR and Rancho Obi-Wan. That is something else. And I tell you what, we don't push. There's a lot of very worthy charities and nonprofits out there in the world. We don't push them very often, but there's one that we will absolutely fanboy for, and that's for Steve Sansweet and Ann and Stu and Bob and everybody that makes Rancho Obi-Wan possible over there. So absolutely, that is a great.
That's really
Great
nice
thing
of
you're
you,
doing.
Turtle Wars. Much appreciated. So, wow. So we got a twofer here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. We got funds for RFR, funds for Rancho Obi-Wan. This is a great night.
That's a win-win. John David says, jetpack fight. It never occurred to me that I needed or wanted to see a friggin' jetpack fight. But now that I've seen one, I don't know how they could ever top that. Maybe Basilisk war droids. Maybe. That's a Harry Potter
Well, you know, I'll
reference.
tell you, we've seen Mandalorians battle, have these aerial fights in the past via animation, but nothing compares seeing it balls out in live action like this. I really wasn't prepared for how much I would just really enjoy watching all of that. I remember the first time I saw Mandalorians fight with jetpacks, and it was probably around season 5 of the Clone Wars, or season 6, and they're shooting around, flying around and stuff. I'm like, wow, this is what we've always wanted to see. Prior to live action Mandalorian jetpack stuff, the only thing we ever saw was that battle with Obi-Wan and Jango Fett on Camino. We got a little jetpack action.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are flying around like a swarm of bees, and it's really outstanding. So, once again, I'm really just taken by the way this was all shot, the choreography, the special effects, the faster, more intense feeling that I got from watching all this go down. Fantastic.
Here's Ubermac. Ubermac says, love the after shows. Keep up the amazing work. Well, thanks, Ubermac. There's a whole archive. We've been doing these after shows, well, since Mandalorian season 1, as a matter of fact. So all of the Disney Plus series have gotten the after show treatment.
My cousin, John McInerney, drives for Uber. I wonder if they call him Ubermac. I'm going to start doing that. I hope you don't mind me borrowing it, but
Jimmy Mac, Billy Mac, and Ubermac. The damn DOC says, did jetpack fuel not matter in this episode? I saw some chatter about that. This is where we get into the physics of Star Wars and things like that. And they, hey, once you use it as a device or as a device, we'll put it. I was going to say crutch, but once you use it as a device in the storytelling, you're kind of then beholden to the rules that you set, and they did set that as a rule that it was too far. They would run out of fuel before they got there when they were looking for the youngling.
I saw a good out for this argument online today, an explanation that works for me. Yeah. That perhaps the gravitational pull on the planet Mandalore was a lot different than on that planet where the Mandalorians were hiding in exile, and that affected their jetpacks. Works for me. I'll take it.
It's got to work better than the truth. Okay. Here is Sal B. Crum. He's back. He says, season 1 ends with Din's face reveal and the reveal of the Darksaber. Season 2 ends with Luke frickin' Skywalker. Season 3 ends with this. I love this series, but feel a little unfulfilled. Hopefully that opinion changes upon a rewatch. When you leave it, when you lay it out like that, Sal, I get what you're saying. But if you look at this as some sort of conclusion, and I don't mean the series, but the end of this book, if these are all chapters in a book, maybe the next book will begin. It is satisfying in that sense. As FJ, I think, articulated really well, it got back to what the series was all about, which is the relationship between these two characters. And to see them have a little bit of peace for you Bond fans, just a quantum of solace, it's pretty cool. I'm okay with it.
Seeing Luke Skywalker show up at the end of season 2, well, that was emotional. That played on our emotions. It played on our nostalgia, But, I wouldn't compare Luke showing up to this episode and use it as a way to knock this episode down, because what we saw in this battle was truly superior to a lot of action sequences we've seen in Star Wars series and on film. I'll match up this action sequence with, many action sequences we see on film, and I think this performs pretty well. It didn't give you the Wikipedia entries or you didn't watch and start bawling like a baby. I mean, that just, to me, indicates how special that moment was when Luke Skywalker appeared at the end of season 2. That was a very special moment. There's no way around that. But I can't say that this episode is bad because it didn't have a deep fake gimmick at the end of it. And maybe it's harsh for people to hear, but I don't know
that I would just call it a gimmick.
It was a
I don't
gimmick
think Luke showing up was a gimmick.
No, because his connection to Grogu and him taking Grogu off to be trained, none of that had any impact on season 3 of The Mandalorian. It was a non-event. Luke's appearance didn't pay off for anything.
I'll
other
agree
than
with
getting
you
them
there.
out of the jam
Okay,
against the Dark Troopers.
Other
than getting them, you're being blinded by emotion and nostalgia. But when you break it all down, Luke's appearance at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian had little to no impact on the story as it unfolded since then. Little to no impact.
I gotta think about
gimmick.
that one. I gotta think about that one a little bit more.
It
I'll
was
be
a
listening
very
back
effective. It
to
was a
this
very
show.
well played gimmick.
I'll be listening back to this show on the way to the day job tomorrow morning, and I'll be arguing with Jimmy Mack when we get to this point.
Yes, you will
in the
be.
car.
I'm sure a lot of people are. You guys are fueled by emotion and your feelings. But as a storytelling device, having Grogu go off to be trained as a Jedi didn't pay off. And having Luke be present didn't pay off in anything, really. I mean, we saw him building a Jedi temple, but I mean, we know where that goes. So, I mean, it didn't really reveal much. I'll be honest with you. It gave us those great moments, you know?
Yeah.
But its impact on the story is absolutely minimal at this point.
Scott says, thanks for the great show, RFR Turtle Wars. You are a true Jedi. Long live Rancho Obi-Wan. Well, here. I love that. Love to see this also from Kong 404040. Says, thank you guys for being part 2 of my weekly Mando experience. Been listening since 2008, and I'm turning 30 on Saturday. Well, happy birthday, buddy. RFR has been a constant as I've grown up. Love the shows, and thanks again from Khan. Thanks, Khan, and happy birthday, as I said. Wow, you're 30. You've been listening to us since 2008. Ooh, like that takes 15? Me back. Yeah, it's like we've been around for half 15. Your life.
Now he's listening. I became a dad at 28, so I was already a grizzled curmudgeon by the time I was 30. Imagine having this podcast corrupting my youth along the way. Yikes.
Well, we
God
love
bless
it.
You.
Thanks very much, and happy to be part of your life, and thanks for letting us be part of yours. John says, in the end scene, did the mythosaur awaken in reaction to Grogu reaching out into the water? Perhaps Din Grogu is, quote unquote, the Mandalorian. I won't go that far, but yes, I'm agreeing with Mac here. Yes, I believe that the mythosaur was awakened by Grogu. Is he the Mandalorian? Likely no, but his force powers did create a connection with him and the creature, I believe.
The Mandalorian. Cares? It makes about as much sense as the Ohio State University. Who cares?
See what he's doing?
Sorry, that was a jab at
He just
Jason.
likes to needle. This is when he starts to like to needle. You know, we're going into the third
Jason's
hour.
A
and
proud
he's like,
alum of OSU, and I don't fault it other than the fact that
I'm really not.
The
You know what?
is kind of pretentious,
I
but whatever.
I don't bleed scarlet and gray like some of them do. I went all 4 years, never went to a game. Sold my tickets every year.
Oh, really?
I sold my student tickets every year because, you know, I wasn't really into it, and I gave them and sold them to people that wanted them a lot more than me, and made some good money, and I didn't have to donate blood like a lot of college students. Chris in the chat says, great job this season. You guys do a great job. Well, thanks, man. We sure do try. Appreciate you recognizing the what we're attempting to do here, but you guys really make it quite easy with all your great comments and thoughts. Here's Sean G. Thanks for all the great coverage this season, gents. What a time to be alive for Star Wars fans. R.I.P. to my favorite Mando costume accessory, the Darksaber. Yeah, it is. It is a kick-ass touch when you're cosplaying as a Mando. It's really cool, and I do love the design of it. I really do. I think it's super. I have a friend of mine that hates it. He thinks it's ridiculous. He thinks it looks goofy and cheap, and you know, he said that it's nothing compared to a lightsaber, Darksaber. I really like it. I don't have a connection to it where I'm mourning it like, you know, the Razor Crest or something, but I always thought it was a cool look. You can still sport it.
Moff Gideon was originally using one of those force pike type of things to do battle with as he was originally conceived. And this was back in Clone Wars season 2. And George Lucas said, wait a second, you know, these electro staffs, they can't block lightsaber blows. And so as a result, it was George Lucas himself who created the Darksaber as a weapon for Pre-Vizsla. something that will block lightsaber blows and make him a formidable opponent for the Jedi in the Clone Wars. So that stuff came directly from George. And you can always use that as an argument with your friend. Well, it came directly from George Lucas. You know more about Star Wars than George Lucas? I love doing stuff like that. That usually ends the argument real fast.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you argue with that? Classic Donut says, nitpick. All right. We're ready to pick some nits. That cartoon-esque closing circle wipe at the very end of chapter 24. Yuck. Maybe a tribute to George's transition wipes, but weird, right? I mean, weird in terms of Star Wars, yeah, but I do think that it is symbolic. I think they're closing out something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's the series, but if it was, they could always point to that and go, yeah, we kind of telegraphed that. That's the end. So, but I think it's more likely what we were saying earlier, which is the close of this book. Chapter 24
it's a happily
is
ever
the last
after.
one. Yeah, it
You know,
is.
the old Warner Brothers cartoons used to close out with the iris,
Yeah.
iris, and it would say, "That's all, folks." I
Okay,
I don't think it's necessary, you know. But it said that, but there was always another Warner Brothers cartoon to watch after that one. So you know, maybe
Right.
it's just nice for the characters to settle down, have a happy ending before the next round of adventures kicks in. So
Maybe it was a Bond tribute. You know, Bond always has that iris at
He
the
would that would
beginning of
iris
each
in.
one. Yeah, yeah,
That would
right,
iris
exactly.
in.
That iris is in. Yeah, this is.
But
irising out.
you know, it's people getting bent out of shape over a wipe or a transition like that. That stuff has never ever been on my radar when it comes to evaluating Star Wars. Ever a transition? Who cares?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it
was
comes out of
different.
nowhere. It's different, so it sticks.
It was
out.
kind of cute. It was cute.
Yeah.
I thought.
And maybe that's all there is to it, is the cuteness.
Yeah.
Hey,
I
you
wouldn't
said
dig
you
any
asked Turtle Wars to call, and here he is. Turtle Wars on the line with us
Yeah.
right now. Turtle Wars.
Hey, I just wanted I wanted you to call in so we could thank you.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, bud. I just wanted you to call in so we could thank you for this awesome thing you're doing, matching our super chats with a donation to Rancho Obi-Wan. You know how important that place is to me and Jason. And we recommend all RFR listeners become a member of Rancho Obi-Wan, ranchoobiwan.org. That's the place to go. But Turtle Wars, wow, what a generous thing to do. And so I just wanted to thank you personally for that.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm obviously very happy to do it. Rancho Obi-Wan is one of my go-to nonprofit places to donate. And of course, I really enjoy RFR. Been listening there for a long time, off and on, and glad that I finally had time to spend more time in it. And a year or so ago, joined Patreon and started hanging out in the chat, and everybody in the chat's so awesome, and just, you know, time to talk Star Wars with everybody. It's just great, and I've enjoyed it for as I've been doing it for a while. I mean, I frequented rebelscum.com all the time in the early 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
And
We all did.
Came about,
Some of us worked there.
I've been listening to you guys. Exactly, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've been whole life. I love it. And I've been collecting Star Wars toys and figures since 1978. And
have you been? Wait a minute. Have you been
to
Rancho Turtle Wars?
Unfortunately, only for at celebrations, the small, you know.
Oh, so
displays
never
of
actually
celebrations.
to. Man, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Of course, you know you got to go there. We got to make that happen. We need to do an RFR meetup there sometime.
Yes. I mean, I travel all the time, all over the world, and so I'm ashamed that I haven't been there yet, but I will get there.
All right. Well, if we have an RFR meetup, you know, we don't have a U.S. convention here for several years, so maybe it's time to do one of those meetups. Would you make it out?
I will do everything I can to. Yeah, it just depends on my schedule, but I would certainly make it out. I've lived in California in the past. I live in South Carolina now, but
you wisened up. I see that.
I got to get back there.
All right.
Well, I'll tell you what, you know. What do you mean you wise it up? Northern California is some of the most beautiful environments I've ever been in out there. But That's funny. That was probably
It
some
really is.
veiled political BS comment from Jason there. I know. I see right through you.
You don't even need to be political to not want to live in California. Jesus.
Oh man, I tell you, I would pack up the whole house and move up to Northern California tomorrow if I could. I love it out there. And yeah, it's possible. Maybe we will have some kind of RFR meetup there. We'll give you plenty of heads up so you'll have enough time to quit the job, turn in your 2-week notice and get out of Dodge and join us.
You can move to California with Mac. He's going to start a commune out there.
Yeah, it's gonna be all Star Wars commune. Yeah, this is the way we're gonna live the Mandalorian lifestyle. We'll all just keep our helmets on all day. It'll be a hoot.
Well, Turtle Wars, thanks very much for everything, and thanks for the generosity and the support. And I'm sure that the folks over at Rancho Obi-Wan will also be very, very indebted and grateful as well. So thank you so much.
I'll take a
Yeah.
I'll take a screenshot of my donation and put it on the Patreon thing. So I'll get in touch with you and find out how much came in tonight, and I'll do it and take a screenshot of it and send it to you.
You got it.
One other really quick thing back to a half ago, the Ezra thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's my memory. I recall that he found the Darksaber in Maul's cave, and he asked Maul what this was, and he said, "Ask your Mandalorian friend; she'll tell you all about it." He took it, and then he gave it to Sabine shortly thereafter. And that's what other people were saying in the chat too. So I think that's correct.
Yeah.
That's the way it went down.
Yeah,
okay. I got to do a rewatch on some of that stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts there.
Time to
especially when it
rewatch
comes
Clone
to
Wars and
leading into Ahsoka, we got to do a rewatch. So maybe we'll loop RFR listeners into it somehow. We'll figure some way to get everybody involved.
And it might be interesting to watch because there was so much Mandalorian stuff going on there in seasons 3 and 4. Now to see where it all gets tied up and to understand where all of those story threads are leading, it might be a real interesting rewatch to check out at least those Mandalorian episodes.
For sure. Oh man, I just saw something I didn't realize we had. I was looking for it. And it didn't show up until the longest time, but now it's well past his bedtime. I hope we're not in trouble. It's time for Blake's Take. I didn't know we had Blake. I didn't know we had him, without Blake. I scrolled down on the switchboard. I hope he's still there. Blake, are you in bed right now, buddy?
No.
Are your mom and dad being really, really nice and letting you stay up late because Uncle Jimmy and Uncle Jason didn't get to your call in time?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. All right, buddy. Well, we want to make sure that you're plenty rested for the big school day tomorrow. So let's hear it. What's Blake's take for the finale of season 3 of The Mandalorian?
All right. So, I have a couple of things to talk about. In the episode, before I get to this, do we know if Moff Gideon actually has the Force?
No.
He does not. That's why he is doing what he's doing with the clones. And unfortunately, those clones were slipping and sliding out of those tubes before they got a chance to draw their first Force-infused breaths.
Well, yeah, he was able to wield the Darksaber. So maybe the Moff Gideon we saw in this episode was one of the clones. Moff Gideon is still somewhere else. Oh, for all we can know, that
it is a possibility.
It's there.
It's definitely a possibility. I would suggest that. Listen to our logic on this, Blake, that this batch of clones, they died at the hands of Mando. So I said to Mac, well, what about, there's had to have been other batches. And Mac said, but those would have been taken care of on that other base. Where was the other base? The Bill Burr base.
Navarro.
On Navarro, of course, right. On Navarro. So we're thinking both batches of Gideon clones were taken care of. But that doesn't mean that what you're saying is impossible. It could be.
Yeah, because also he says how he's gonna make them have the Force.
Right.
The way I think he's gonna make them have the Force was whenever he got that blood from Grogu.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He's had that, and so then he puts it into the clones.
Yes.
This way they have Force powers.
Right. And if he accomplished that, he would be the first to accomplish that.
Yeah, he'd be the first person to actually let it stable the Force without growing old or stuff
Right.
like that, to quit or just dying.
Yeah.
When Mando,
also,
Mithril.
if-
Oh, go ahead, Blake. I just wanted to point out something, but I want to hear what you have to say. That's more important.
Okay. But maybe one of the clones have escaped like a little bit before. Whenever Mando broke all the tubes, that one that looked at Grogu and like the mouthpiece in the water fell out, I think that's one that might have escaped. Just like left. Hopped in a ship or something and I just flew away. And while it's out wherever it's at, it could find some of Dr. Pershing's studies. Because that might help the clone.
Well, okay, so the speculation here is that one of the clones, maybe the one that gave Grogu the jump scare, this one right here, he could have escaped, or one of them could have escaped and found Dr. Pershing's information. And what would he have done with this, Blake? Is he just going to pick up the mantle and become Moff Gideon?
Yeah.
He might become Moff Gideon, but be more than Moff Gideon. Like, be what Moff Gideon couldn't be.
Right, be what he couldn't be. Yeah, I was checking out to see if he had the stash. For a minute, I thought that the clone Gideons had the stash, but it just looks like it's the way the light is hitting there. So no stash on the on clone Gideon.
Hey Blake, you were right about IG-11 becoming something of a mobile weapon platform for Grogu.
Yeah, like the Krangs in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, like Krang. That's exactly right. That's exactly
that was
right.
a good call. That was a great call.
Blake, I'm going to ask you on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being terrible, horrible, a waste of my time, and 5 being this is some of the best Star Wars I've ever seen. Would you give us a number rating on season 3 of The Mandalorian for us?
It's either a 4 or a 4.5. I really liked some of the episodes of the season.
I like that you went with the 4.5.
had
That's so
Grogu.
diplomatic of you.
Because they had Grogu to where he actually showed off his skills in this episode. How he can jump around and all that. Like, he does that sometimes, but he did it a lot this episode to try to get away from the guards.
Wasn't that great?
Right.
And at one
and
point,
with the fire to where he stopped.
yes. And at one point, when he's skipping around on the guards, I always watch with the subtitles. At least one of my viewings is with the subtitles because I like to know, you get some clues in there. Excuse me. At one point, the subtitle says that Grogu laughs.
He does.
He giggles.
You can
at
clearly hear
the
it.
Praetorians. Yeah. Like he's kind of having fun at the same time. Like he's too little or naive to understand the danger that he's in, or he just has such incredible skill and faith, belief, whatever you want to say, that he's not afraid. He has very little fear. The only thing that seems to really strike fear in Grogu's heart is when Din Djarin is in danger. Then you see real fear.
Yeah.
Outside, he never seems to be fearful for himself.
It's almost like he really doesn't have a care in the world. Like, he'll just jump around and have fun. whenever it's just him. But whenever Mando's in danger, he will go like full on focus
Yeah.
and make sure that Mando don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And isn't that just like a kid, you know?
Right.
Just having fun until mom or dad are in big trouble. And then,
well, I tell you what, Blake, one of my highlights every Wednesday is listening to you and your analysis, because I tell you what, buddy, you're very impressive. You were spot on. I'll never figure out how you landed on the IG-11 modification, the mod that would house Grogu. That's some serious intuitive, unless your dad is Jon Favreau, which I don't think that's the case. Or
is your dad Jon Favreau? Are you a Vizsla?
Yeah. I don't think that's the case. It
Blake
shows
Vizsla.
that you've got Jedi skills. So look forward to hearing from you again. Don't forget, we've got Ahsoka coming up later this summer, so we want to hear Blake's take on Ahsoka.
I can't wait for Ahsoka. That's going to be a good show. Because it's not just going to be based on Ahsoka. It's going to be everything.
Yeah,
it's not just going to be all one thing. It's going to lead everywhere.
Well, you're so right about that, because I think what's going to happen is if other characters in the Filoni-verse, the Filoni-Favreau-verse show up, it's not going to throw us off like it did with Book of Boba Fett. We didn't expect that to happen. Now we're going to be expecting crossover and that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I think maybe while Ahsoka is in that world between worlds, which is what we see her in, she might run into a timeline with Grogu and Mando. Could be the future.
So we could maybe see old Grogu or older Grogu or something.
Yeah.
That would be cool. All right, buddy. Well, thanks very much. Take care, and we will definitely talk to you again soon on the after show. And get some sleep, okay? I know what it's like getting those kids up for school the next morning after they stayed up late, talking to a podcast. Crazy stuff.
What a good kid he is.
He is a great kid.
Good kid he is.
Here's Chris. Chris from says, a huge shortcut, a Mando breaking atmosphere. It took us humans creating the most complex machine ever made, the Saturn V rocket with over 3 million parts, just to get to the moon. Well, come on, Chris. It's a galaxy far, far away, man. I mean,
plus that was the 60s.
But thanks for the super chat. And I get it. I understand where you're coming from. Paul Kurt says, I'd watch an animated series with 5 cloned Gideons running around on zany adventures, just monologuing in villain tones for 35 minutes straight.
Oh, I get it. I'd like to see 5 cloned Gideons hosting a late night talk show. So you'd have one behind the desk, one is the sidekick, and the other 3 are in the band.
Perfect.
I think that would be really, or one would be an announcer, one would be a band leader, and the other guy would be the wacky character underneath the seats. That would be fun. His top 10 list would always be, about himself.
Of course.
It'd be like, 1 through 10 would all be me every time. Who's the greatest in the galaxy? Number 10, me. Number 9, me. All right.
All right, we're to take us home on the callers. We've got Marty. He's a Patreon supporter of Rebel Force Radio. He's on the phone right now. Marty from Georgia.
Marty.
Make it good, Georgia.
Hey, chit-chat, guys. How you guys doing?
Shot. All right, doing good.
Hey, Marty.
I got all the tough ones to follow. The Santos and then Blake. I always get the tough ones to follow.
That's okay.
So, man.
You got it. You got this.
What a great... Appreciate it. What a great episode. I definitely... a lot of cool things. I remember I read some comic book or some book where they tried for General Grievous to give him the Force by giving him Jedi Master Sifo Dyas's blood and hoping that would work. So I don't know if it ultimately worked or not, but that was kind of a cool, interesting tie-in to see that, if that would work or not. So I thought that was neat, first of all. The other thing is just a big thing that I didn't hear talked about at all was when the cruiser slams into the ground and blows up Gideon, that moment where Grogu has put the force field up around them. That was, and the music is just swelling. My buddy and I, we're just like, when Gideon gets fried and it shows the outside, my buddy's like, they're all dead. They can't be alive. And I thought they were going to be hiding behind Bo's little wrist shield, whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
But then just seeing Grogu with the Force, holding the fire back and the triumphant music, that was just a feel-good Star Wars moment. Like
it was awesome, and I love the visual.
The
visual on that was gorgeous with the shot of him from the back and holding. Now, the only complaint that I would have is this is something we saw him do before, but this was in a far more grand fashion. We saw him hold back
with
the
fire?
flames with fire. Yeah. During the raid when Grief and Mando and Cara Dune were hiding out from the surge or the siege there on that, was that season 1, I believe.
2.
Or no, season, was it season 1?
2.
Season 1.
No, which one?
Yeah, with the flamethrower guy comes in to barbecue them. Yeah, that was season 1, the finale.
Oh,
that's right. Yeah, the finale of season 1. Yes.
Okay, now I remember that. Yes, I do.
Yeah. So we held back the flames before.
It's but an explosion of this magnitude. I was clapping. Let's just say I was by myself.
No. Yes,
I don't normally do that. It elicited a response from me. I was so thrilled. I started clapping. So that's uncommon for me. I laugh at people. Yay, Grogu! Yeah. I'm like, what's the matter with you, dude? Oh, who cares? Yeah, I really got into it. So I know what you're saying.
My buddy and I high-fived when that happened because like, oh, what a beast! And then just the ending, I loved it. I love seeing the little Dave Filoni cameo in the bar. I don't know if you guys caught. I'm sure you guys caught that.
Oh yeah. I tell you what, I don't know who that bum is, but he's always in the bar. That guy. I think he's got a problem, if you ask me. Every
all
time.
I gotta say,
and
is no wonder.
Was epic.
No wonder. I'm trying to say something. No wonder the New Republic has so much difficulty keeping order in the Outer Rim because their pilots are spending all their time at the bar. Okay.
And Space
I thought that was a
Vietnam.
funny statement.
That just felt like a
I guess
Vietnam
too
camp.
aggressive. Hey, look, there's a Greedo X-Wing pilot. I've always wanted to see that.
Yeah, there was a Greedo X-Wing.
And this last thing I want to say. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
This last thing I was going to say. I know there's more in development, but if it ended there, I would not have been upset just because it's such a happy ending of kick back with the feet up on the bench, watching his kid play. And that just was very emotional.
It's what it's all about, man.
And I just, I look forward to seeing what happens.
That's all
next.
us dads
And
want.
Ahsoka,
This is all us dads want right there. That scene. Feet kicked up, watching the kids play, knowing they're safe, knowing they're happy, torturing the poor frogs in the pond. That's what that's what
the cigar would be nice in this
The
situation.
cigar would be nice.
Yeah.
He needs a little hole in that helmet for the cigar. Hey, Marty, thanks so much. You're always a great call. Thank you.
I just have to say that if we thought a happy ending meant the end of anything having to do with Star Wars, everything would have been over after the first film, which, as if I recall, had a happy ending. So the only loose thread at the end of the original film, they blew up the Death Star. They killed Grand Moff Tarkin. We see Vader flying off. So at least that's a loose end, right? There's way more loose ends in this story than there were at the end of A New Hope. So if everything were to end there, I get the out of universe explanations. Well, George Lucas didn't know it was going to be a big hit. He was gambling on that there'd be a sequel. I get all that, but I'm just saying there can be a happy ending and there could be more to tell in the story.
That's absolutely true. All right. Yeah. So for all the super chats, as we go through the end of the episode, we're at least going to show them here. There was just so many this week. We didn't get to them all, but that doesn't mean we don't love them and don't appreciate them. And as Turtle Wars said, they're all going to be matched, and dollar for dollar, it's going to go to Rancho Obi-Wan. But my, there was so much to cover this week with the finale of season 3. Don't forget, late summer, we got Ahsoka season 1. We'll be getting back together right here on the RFR live streams, the after show live streams. That'll be exciting, and we'll find excuses. Trust us, we'll find excuses to get together like this, and you'll be the first to know if you're a subscriber to the Rebel Force Radio YouTube channel and follow us on all of our social platforms. Do want to give a big shout out and thanks to our call screener, Tyler Page, who's here. You know, I got to give you a shout out, Tyler, in this sense that there have been a few times, it's rare, but we'll have to reschedule or maybe we change the time of the after show. And I never ask, oh, is Tyler available? Because you're always there, dude. It doesn't matter what happens in our schedules and our lives. And that dedication really means a lot. So thank you so much for always being here.
I am the official show observer. So whether I'm behind the screen or not, I've always just been watching you guys.
Yeah, and it's
listening.
sort of like the tree in the forest. If Tyler doesn't observe the show, did it really happen? Existential question. But thanks, Tyler. All right, so give us your thoughts on Season 3. We wrapped it all up. A lot of great callers, a lot of great comments in the chat. Anything that jumped out at you in particular? Were you happy with how things went?
I think, like, generally for me and probably a lot of people in the chat, like, you can just take what FJ says and then just, like, copy and paste. That works.
FJ was resonating with a lot of people, that's for sure.
Yeah. When I watched this last episode, I was not as excited as everyone else. I don't know. There were things that weren't clicking for me. Like the Darksaber was disappointing. There was other things that were disappointing, but I don't really want to harsh on that right now exactly. Because I don't think I have a good explanation. I need to absorb it more. But one thing that stuck out was like that little flash scene where Grogu envisioned the mythosaur. I felt like, you know, that's a noble vision. We saw him get knighted earlier in the season. I'm wondering if that's a thread that they'll continue on in season 4 for another show. Because that's there for a reason. I feel like those last 3 little bits they showed were all things that could have been a mid-credit scene or something. So if you're disappointed you didn't get that, it's because I feel like it was just right there anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm still taking all this in.
Mm-hmm. You seem like you're a little on the fence, sort of on the side of maybe this didn't quite pay off the way you wanted.
The show itself was fantastic. Like, I thought it was, like, the visuals you guys brought up were great. The plot was great. It's just the, I don't know, I guess the writing. Like, some of the callers were mentioning, like, Din basically was only guarded by 2 guards as he's walking out the door, and he was captured by 6, so obviously he's going to be able to escape from that. You know, there's
captured by 6, guarded by 2. For you supervillains out there, mark that down. That is not good odds.
Exactly.
All right, buddy.
Yeah, I think it's good.
All right. Well, thanks very much. Love having you here. Really appreciate it. Jimmy Mac, final thoughts. Mandalorian, big season finale, the end of season 3.
Wow, what a season it's been. I mean, really. Just before I get deep into my final thoughts, I want to let everyone know, no RFR next week. Me and Swanker on spring break. So we're going to be poolside. Who are we kidding? I'll be in my basement studio every day. I'm never getting a break. But no, we are taking a break next week. So there's going to be no RFR for the first time, for the first week this year. We've been giving you guys 2 shows a week for the most part. It's kind of bittersweet to be here at the final Wednesday of an amazing 2023. Next Wednesday is going to be the first day we're not getting new Star Wars content this year. Wow. It's just been what a age to be a Star Wars fan right now. I mean, we've never seen this kind of content being dumped on us, along with, you know, the news that has been breaking about future Star Wars films and all the fallout from their big whoop-de-doo in London. It's a lot of Star Wars to soak up, but you know, I'm loving it. I'm a Star Wars sponge for the most part. So no show next week. Don't look for your feeds for anything. However, Patreon is humming along, and if you join Patreon, it only takes $1 to get in the door. You get access to 161 episodes of RFR Q&A, If you go higher in tiers, you get access to shows like The Babu Freaks, ad-free episodes, early bird releases. We hope will be coming back maybe as soon as May. And of course, there's full show video. There's RFR RPG. There's so much going on over there. So if you're chosen for RFR next week, you're still riding the high of what a great Star Wars year it's been thus far, and you need to hear more discussion from the RFR gang about Star Wars, join us on Patreon, and we'll keep you busy. RFR will be back on May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Jason, we're still planning on doing a live stream that night?
Absolutely. Let's do it. If we're not going to do one on May 4th, when would we do one?
Right. And so there'll be things dropping on May 4th. Jedi Survivor will be out there. What else? The new video game, that is, The Return of Cal Kestis. And we have Star Wars Visions will be dropping on the 4th. And even Young Jedi Adventures, which is coming. Which,
I told no
everybody,
after shows. By the way, Matt keeps threatening me with after shows for Young Jedi Adventures, and I'm throwing down. I got to moderate this stuff. I'm throwing down on that one.
Jason's worried that Young Jedi Adventures will lead to after shows about young Sheldon, young Rock, young Frankenstein, and Mighty Joe Young. So, no, we're not going to be. We're the furthest thing from young around here at Rebel Force Radio. Let me just say that. But, it might be worth at least taking a peek and seeing what Lucasfilm is offering for the little tots out there. And so maybe it'll be at least acknowledged.
Oh, we'll chat about it. Yeah, we should chat
for
about
Young
it.
Jedi Adventures. Are you kidding me? Oh, man. So much is happening. So we'll be back here taking your calls on May the 4th. It'll probably just be, kind of a random show talking about anything and everything Star Wars. And that's what we should be doing on May the 4th be with you, is celebrating all aspects of Star Wars. Like Season 3 of The Mandalorian, which was just incredible. A couple of little observations. Right when Din said to Baby Yoda, we have to take out Moff Gideon or this will never end, I knew Moff Gideon wasn't going to survive this episode or this season. I just knew it. And I do believe Moff Gideon is dead. I think that's it. Clones or no clones, Moff is gone. I liked how the season ended with Ragnar Vizsla completing his pledge to the Creed. The season began with Ragnar taking the Creed, but it was interrupted by the Turtle Gator, and all hell broke loose. So it's nice to see that he finally was able to take the Creed. And a lot of people are noticing that when he was taking the Creed in the first episode of this season, there was mention of never removing your helmet. And when he takes the Creed at the season finale, the armorer, she does not bring up keeping your helmet off. I really thought that the removal of the helmet would open the door for a season 4 where we see much more Pedro Pascal. And I'm kind of thinking that eventually this series will take us to a place where we see Din becoming more comfortable removing his helmet, and we see more Pedro Pascal. But we didn't see Pedro Pascal's face at all this season, and we saw him in the first 2 seasons, so that kind of leads me to believe that Pedro was never on the set for season 3. Thus, the elevated credit status of Lateef Crowder and Brendan Wayne as the stand-ins, the guys who are physically playing the Mandalorian throughout the whole show. Pedro is largely a voiceover talent in this situation, but that could change. That could change. I mean, there's nothing really, now that that this different way of Mandalorian life has been accepted by the old school children of the watch, there could be more of an acceptance and more flexibility with removing the helmet. That opens the door to Pedro Pascal. And you know that Lucasfilm would love to have Pedro on screen for a full season of Mandalorian based on how hot a property he is in Hollywood right now. What we didn't see in the final episode, I thought we would see, of course, the revelation of any spies, just to piss off FJ DeSanto. We didn't get any reveals of any spies. We didn't get Grand Admiral Thrawn. We didn't see any Purgles. Pershing was not available for the season finale. Neither was Kane. There was no New Republic involvement with the liberation of Mandalore, which I thought for sure there would be. We did get some of those seeds to sprout at the very end when Mando made a deal to work for them. But otherwise, all of their sniffing around, it didn't really pay off in season 3, maybe in future seasons. Also, I hope we get more Grogu flashbacks in future seasons. They only do the flashbacks when the armorer is smelting new armor, and then the characters have these flashbacks. I thought for sure as Grogu would, accepted the creed and all of this and became the adopted son of Din Djarin, I thought for sure we might have a new sequence with the Great Forge being operated for the first time, and we get some additional information about Grogu, about what happened after he left Coruscant. We didn't get it. No post-credit sequence, no tease for Ahsoka or anything like that, no deep fake character moments, no Cara Dune, no Jack Black, no Lizzo. That's the end of this season. Now, listen, there's a lot of people who have issues with this season, and there's a few that I might have. Visually, it looks like everything is bright. Everything is really bright, shot very brightly. And that to me, it loses its exotic flavor a little bit, because many outdoor sequences from this season felt like any other TV series shot in the bright California sunlight. Okay? I like to see a little more exotic flavor when these guys are shooting exterior scenes. They did a great job with depicting the planet Mandalore, though, in these last 2 episodes. But, a lot of people are complaining about the way the series looks. Some are complaining about the soundtrack. Ludwig Göransson is a genius. He's got big shoes to fill, and this season really proved that. But I wasn't offended by the soundtrack music as much as I heard some people complain. And then the celebrity cameos. Nobody wants to see Star Wars become the Love Boat. Who's next? Charo? Artie Johnson? JP Morgan? Who's next? I don't know. And the shift of focus on Bo-Katan, I think, was a turnoff for a lot of people, too. Very comfortable with the chemistry between Din Djarin and Grogu being in the spotlight all the time. Bo, maybe I was a little harsh. She's not a very dynamic character, but I was maybe a little hard on her because she did have some big moments in season 3, most notably in episode 2 and episode 7. We learn a little bit. She's not as bland as I was claiming, but she's really not a great character. I have a hard time finding any way to relate with her. But none of those are my issues with season 3. The biggest issue I have with season 3 is they played it safe. They played it safe in the writing room. Low stakes, easy resolutions, despite the potential for a big conflict surrounding ownership of the Darksaber with teases in this season and the animated series. Going all the way back to that, there really was no conflict, no twists. Maybe Disney is once bitten, twice shy about the whole Rian Johnson approach of subverting expectations, and so they just wanted to play it safe this year. And I think as a result, there is a focus of the season, and the focus is all about resolving these stories about the history of Mandalore. And I think the whole season unfolds nicely if you watch it all at once. There's solid mythology expansion, ties up a lot of loose ends, and it features some of the greatest action ever seen in Star Wars live action before, series or film. All in all, it was a fun, enjoyable season. I love it. I want more. I clapped at the end. Yay! Felt warm and fuzzy knowing that our heroes have finally found a little bit of peace and they're getting the rest they need. Because I think they're going to be called into action again soon enough. And the rest they need was foreshadowed all the way back in season 1. So it's about time these guys get to take a deep breath and enjoy living the fat life on Navarro. Basically, the bottom line with this show, a lot of people are like, well, it's not as dramatic as Andor and all that. This show is all about busting open the toy box, breaking out all the action figures and playing with them in the backyard. And that's what Favreau and Filoni have done all season. Rick Famuyiwa, all of them. They bust out the toy box and they play with the action figures. And that's an approach that has a lot of heart, a lot of integrity, and I can't wait for season 4. New Gunray, not in this episode. Well, I can keep going if you'd like. Swank probably left to go fix a sandwich or something, but I can keep going.
I'm still here. No, I'm still here. You know what I was doing? I was actually ordering up my tickets for Return of the Jedi, the 40th anniversary, back in theaters, April 28th through May 4th.
Oh,
I will be there. I'm taking the whole fam. We're going to go see ROTJ in the theaters. My kids have never seen an original trilogy film in the theaters. So why not start them off with the first film I saw in the theaters, Return of the Jedi. So yeah, April 28th through May 4th in the States. In the UK, I believe it's April 28th through May 1st. So yeah, can't wait to see it.
Tell us all about it when we get together on May the 4th.
Yeah, can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see you guys next time on a Rebel Force Radio live stream. We're going to be doing it on May 4th. We'll all celebrate. May the 4th be with you together. More details coming up on the website and, of course, on all of our social media feeds. That's rebelforceradio.com. Please check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Lots of ways you can support the show. As Max mentioned earlier, Patreon, of course. But the number one way is just to keep listening and tell your friends about your favorite Star Wars podcast. Love to have you subscribe if your podcatcher of choice allows such a thing. Also, if it allows you to leave a review, we love those. Just one very simple rule, please.
Make them good.
All right, we're going to take a little bit of time off next week, as we said, but we'll be back May the 4th. Big thanks to Tyler. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to guys like Jeff Holland. I want to give him a shout out because he's just always here each and every week. Yanni is here. Maddie, Moni G, Turtle Wars, of course. Tanya, she's awesome. You guys don't think we see all you? We see all of you. Peter Beiser, of course. We could go on and on and on, but those are the ones that just come to mind as the ones that are here each and every week, and always bringing the
fart party,
of course, bringing the positivity and the fun time. So we'll see you next time. Until next time, for Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.